Chapter 2102. Translator. H2H2 Mr. Du Xiaofu was riddled with wounds, but under the effect of the indestructible Xian body, the purple-gold lightning rippled on the surface of his body, and his injuries were slowly recovering. At this moment, in this strange place where he was suppressed, Du Xiaofu's injuries were recovering at a speed comparable to when he was outside. The indestructible Xian body was not suppressed at all by this strange place, and this was Du Xiaofu's advantage. Even if both sides were injured, he was not afraid at all. The 9 Demon Emperor and the 8 Demon Emperor were furious. Not only were they suppressed, but their injuries were also getting worse and worse. If this continued for a long time, they would only be at a disadvantage. On the other hand, the brat was getting braver and crazier as the battle went on. This made the 8 Demon Emperor and the 9 Demon Emperor feel pressure and fear. "Brat, I will not forgive you," the 9 Demon Emperor shouted angrily. His palm released a terrifying power and slammed toward Du Xiaofu. He wanted to end this battle quickly and settle everything as soon as possible. Seeing the 9 Demon Emperor attack again, the 8 Demon Emperor swung his huge scorpion tail and suddenly changed direction. He aimed at Du Xiaofu and pierced through the void, stabbing straight at him. These two attacks, one from the front and one from the back, froze the void and attacked Du Xiaofu from both sides. "With your cultivation suppressed, you have no right to be arrogant in front of me." Du Xiaofu sneered. The golden wings on his back flapped, and he actually broke through the void. In a flash, he did not retreat but advanced, clenching his fist and slamming it against the 9 Demon Emperor's palm. Boom! The fist and palm collided, and countless spatial ripples appeared out of nowhere. Rings of energy ripples and demonic chi spread out, raising the surroundings to the ground. Piff! The 9 Demon Emperor's body was also directly shaken to the ground, smashing into the rubble. The ground shook from the impact, and he spat out blood again. His palm was in great pain, and blood flowed out from his perlicue. Chi! The black scorpion tail pierced through the void and slammed down on Du Xiaofu. Although half of it was broken, its power did not diminish, and it emitted a terrifying black light. Du Xiaofu shook his arm and a claw shot out. The rock's chaos-crushing claw twisted the void and grabbed the black scorpion's tail tightly. Jie, the 8 Demon Emperor immediately sneered. This attack contained the power of his main body. Not only did it contain a demonic aura that looked down on one's soul, it also contained a terrifying poison. Even if it was a confrontation of physical strength at this moment, who would dare to directly resist this attack of his? Anyone who came into contact with it would instantly have their mind corroded and their profound aura sealed. However, just as he sneered, the expression of the 8 Demon Emperor suddenly changed. Within the confinement of Du Xiaofu's claws, he felt a terrifying power that was not afraid of his demonic chi or poison. This made his heart sink immediately. It seems to be getting weaker and weaker. Accompanied by such a chilling sneer, a purple-gold light shot out like a sun and instantly appeared on the black scorpion's tail. The purple-gold light cut through the void and slashed the black scorpion's tail with lightning speed. Chila! The void trembled as a terrifying energy exploded. The black scorpion's tail was cut into two by the domineering energy that cut through the void. A large amount of blood splattered everywhere. The 8 Demon Emperor roared in anger. He was in extreme pain and was injured again. Bang bang! Not far away, the 7 Demon Emperor's Dark Phoenix body and Jiangshan's Golden Growler body collided and separated. Black flames surged in the void and red smoke billowed. Rumble! The ground around them was crushed and constantly emitted rumbling sounds. Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Gullies were everywhere. A golden growler and a dark phoenix. Both of them were stained with blood, but there was still no clear winner. The 7 Demon Emperor's fierce eyes looked very unsightly. This result was beyond their expectations. The 3 of them joined forces, but they couldn't even take down 2 juniors. They couldn't even gain the slightest advantage. Some things are more important. Let's go. The 7 Demon Emperor said after a slightly cold look. The dark phoenix flapped her wings and flew away. Her figure then transformed into a graceful human figure. Without any hesitation, the 7 Demon Emperor was very decisive. He couldn't gain the upper hand in this place, and it would be even more disadvantageous for him to continue the stalemate. Kid, you will fall into my hands one day. At that time I will make sure you beg for death. The 8 Demon Emperor's fierce brown eyes were extremely malicious. He was unwilling and angry, but he didn't stop and followed the 7 Demon Emperor. Kid, you won't be able to jump around for long. The 9 Demon Emperor's voice was cold. He was covered in wounds and his armor was dented. There was blood at the corner of his mouth. As a dignified Demon Emperor who had merged with his original body, he was in such a sorry state in his first battle. This was definitely a humiliation. Where do you think you are going? Du Xiaofu didn't say anything superfluous. He directly slashed down with his sword. The sword light broke through the void like a thunderbolt. Bastard! The 9 Demon Emperor cursed angrily. However, he didn't dare to stay and quickly fled. However, the 9 Demon Emperor was a little slower. A strand of hair was cut off at the side of his neck. The cold and domineering sword light brushed past his neck and made his hair stand on end. A sense of fear grew in the depths of his divine soul. Kid, I won't let you off. The 9 Demon Emperor's shrill roar reverberated in the void. However, he didn't dare to stop and left quickly. The dignified Demon Emperors had existed since ancient times. Now, when the 3 of them joined forces, they could only evade the attacks of 2 juniors. The 8 Demon Emperor and the 9 Demon Emperor were especially sullen and resentful. The 2 Demon Emperors were in such a sorry state because of a junior. In the end, they were chased and killed. How sullen was that? If the news spread, they would have nowhere to put their old faces. Seeing the 3 Demon Emperors turn around and flee without hesitation, Du Xiaofu was also very surprised. He wanted to chase after them. Even if he could suppress one of them, the chances of rescuing his master, the venerable equipment master, Xiahou Fenglei, would be much higher. Du Xiaofu held back and didn't chase after them. He weighed the pros and cons in his heart. It wasn't easy to suppress a Demon Emperor. If this strange place suddenly disappeared, everything would be reversed and he would be the unlucky one. Moreover, there were still many people on the ancient warship who couldn't leave. He was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Is it true? Those 3 Demon Emperors actually fled. On the huge ancient warship, Shi Jejun, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and the others were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes as they watched the 3 Demon Emperors flee. Those were 3 dignified Earth Demon Emperors. They actually fled in such a sorry state. If this news spread, no one would believe it. A moment later, Shi Jejun and the others sucked in a breath of cold air. Those 2 guys were too terrifying. They made 3 Demon Emperors flee in such a sorry state. This kind of battle record was enough to call them invincible. Du Xiaofu, Jiangchen, and the others once again landed on the deck of the huge warship. Jiangchen was injured and seemed to be in a sorry state. However, compared to Du Xiaofu, he was much better. However, Du Xiaofu's injuries were slowly recovering. His hair was disheveled, and the bloodstains on his body glowed. He looked like a god of war. Are you all right? Gu Xinyan, Shi Jejun, Wu Kei, Feng Han, and the others gathered around. Their shocked expressions turned into concern. I'm fine. Du Xiaofu smiled at everyone and shook his head, indicating that he was fine. After which, he raised his head and looked at the dozens of saint artifacts that were still reverberating in the air. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered, and he seemed to be deep in thought. The saint artifacts have spirits. Please leave with me. One day, you will inherit the glory of your ancestors and restore Tianwu Academy to its former glory. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly and bowed to the dozens of saint artifacts. These were the saint artifacts left behind by the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. Saint artifacts had spirits, and Du Xiaofu didn't want to forcefully take them. Instead, he wanted to invite this batch of saint artifacts away. The saint artifacts have spirits. Please leave with me. One day, you will inherit the glory of your ancestors and restore Tianwu Academy to its former glory. When Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, Tang Wu, and the other students of Tianwu Academy saw this, they immediately stood behind Du Xiaofu and bowed. The Tianwu Academy emblem on their shoulders emitted a dazzling glow. Wang wang. The sound of wind and thunder reverberated in the air, as though they were saying something. Following which, the dozens of saint artifacts surrounded Du Xiaofu, Wu Kei, Gu Xinyan, and the others. A group of artifacts circled around them, releasing a resplendent glow. It was an astonishing sight. He succeeded. Feng Han raised his eyebrows. He knew that the saint artifacts left behind by the ancestors of Tianwu Academy had agreed to leave with them. This was another dozens of saint artifacts, and it was sufficient to stun all the powers in the world. After which, Du Xiaofu tidied up the massive ancient warship and found the inheritances left behind by the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. They were all hidden within the skeletons, and there were several universe bags that contained a large amount of rare cultivation resources. This ancient warship is a precious treasure as well. It probably isn't inferior to a saint artifact. Du Xiaofu stared at the ancient warship. This ancient warship was extraordinary. It was a precious treasure, and it wouldn't be inferior to an ordinary saint artifact. For hours later, Du Xiaofu smiled. As a talisman master, even though his attainments in smithing hadn't reached the level of a talisman master, he had done some research and understood the profoundness of this warship. This ancient warship was similar to a saint artifact. After so many years, it had become an ownerless object. Perhaps, the experts of Tianwu Academy didn't know that there was an energy barrier outside and intentionally left the warship behind. Thus, it didn't acknowledge anyone as its master. In any case, this warship was an ownerless object. Du Xiaofu also understood the profoundness of the warship, and he was able to take it away. However, Du Xiaofu felt a headache coming on. This bizarre place suppressed his cultivation, the strength of his primordial spirit, and all other means. If he wanted to take away this massive warship, he would have to make it acknowledge him as its master. However, under the current circumstances, there was no way for him to do so. It's fine if I give up on this warship. Who knows, I might still have a chance to obtain it. However, there are so many skeletons of the ancestors on this warship. I wish to bring them out so that they can rest in peace. Du Xiaofu's expression turned grave. He didn't wish to leave the skeletons of the ancestors of Tianwu Academy here. With so many skeletons, he could only bring them away after taking away this warship. At this moment, he couldn't use the ancient desolate space or the purple lightning profound cauldron. Everyone fell silent upon hearing Feng Lin's words. The space was suppressed, and no one could do anything about it. Feng Han looked at Du Xiaofu and hesitated for a moment. Gritting his teeth, he asked, I have an idea that might work. However, it can only last for a few seconds. Can you succeed? Chapter 2103. If there's a way, we can give it a try, Du Xiaofu said. My Phoenix clan has a method that comes from the vermilion bird. Not all disciples of the Phoenix clan can master it, and I can only touch it slightly. It can affect space. This strange space suppresses cultivation. Perhaps I can make it recover for a few moments, but only for a few moments at most, Feng Han said. That was his trump card, and he rarely used it. It required a great price. Du Xiaofu and Feng Han discussed. They had everyone leave the warship first and let Feng Han use his method to try to control the warship. After that, Du Xiaofu sent Jiangchen, Qi Jiajun, and the others off the warship and returned to the cabin with Feng Han. The two of them looked at each other, and their expressions turned serious. Feng Han nodded, and his hand seals formed. In this strange space, all methods were suppressed. However, at this moment as Feng Han's strange hand seals formed, talisman runes flew out. The profound energy in his body surged out like a tide, and a blazing five-colored flame surged. Gee! In an instant, the image of a phoenix appeared, and it let out a loud cry, erupting with a terrifying power. Boom! At this moment, the entire giant warship trembled. At this moment, Du Xiaofu also felt that the profound energy in his body was no longer suppressed. It rumbled in the divine watchtower, and the origin spirit in his mind was also boiling. Du Xiaofu was a little surprised. He didn't expect Feng Han to be able to affect this strange space. At the same time, Du Xiaofu didn't stop at all. His hand seals formed, and he used the power of his origin spirit and the essence blood in his body to recognize the ancient warship as its master. Everything happened quickly. This was no stranger to Du Xiaofu. I can't hold on any longer. In just a few breaths, as Feng Han had expected, he couldn't hold on any longer. The faintly discernible phoenix image disappeared in an instant, and space returned to normal. Qila. At the same time, under the astonished gazes of Qi Jiajun and the others outside the warship, the enormous warship that was like a vast plaza disappeared in an instant. Qila. Two figures strangely flew out of the void. They were Du Xiaofu and Feng Han. The energy barrier that enveloped the ancient warship also disappeared silently, and there was no more movement. Success! Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with joy. At this moment, a warship that was half the size of his palm, and it was emitting a radiant light and an ancient aura. It was the ancient warship that had recognized the ancient warship, and it contained the corpses of Tianwu Academy's ancestors. Feng Han's face fangs was Feng Han. Great! The Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and the others gathered around and looked at Feng Han with astonishment. They didn't expect this guy to have such a way. Many thanks. Du Xiaofu expressed his thanks to Feng Han and stored the ancient warship into his bosom. This warship was a compressed treasure, but there was no way to store it in the universe bag, and there was no way to open the ancient desolate space or the purple thunder profound cauldron. He could only carry it with him. It's not worth mentioning. Feng Han smiled bitterly. Compared to the protection that the demon emperor had imperceptibly given to everyone, even though he had expended a lot of energy, it was nothing. Du Xiaofu looked at Feng Han, and his eyes flickered with malicious intent. The Phoenix race's methods are very mystical. If we encounter another Sage Realm expert, it might be of great use. Du Xiaofu knew that Feng Han could make this strange space return to normal. If he encountered the Devil Cult or other enemy experts of the Sage Realm, he would be able to suppress or kill a suppressed expert of the Sage Realm. If he had known this earlier, the 9 Demon Emperor, the 8 Demon Emperor, and the others wouldn't have been able to escape at all. Du Xiaofu was surprised that the 9 Demon Emperor, the 8 Demon Emperor, and the others would not have been able to escape. Don't even think about it. How could Feng Han not know what Du Xiaofu was thinking? He glanced helplessly at Du Xiaofu and smiled bitterly. Not to mention the fact that I can't use it again in a short time. Even if I can, I'm not strong enough to only affect you. At most, I can only affect myself for a few moments. Once I use it, it might even help my opponent. Is that so? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. If Feng Han used that method, he wouldn't only be able to prevent himself from being suppressed in this strange space, but he wouldn't be able to prevent his opponent from being suppressed at the same time. If he encountered a Saint Realm expert, he would be shooting himself in the foot. Let's rest for a while. Then, Du Xiaofu decided to rest for a while. His injuries weren't light. His body could recover very quickly in this strange place. However, he had consumed a lot of his physical strength. After all, he had been in a very weak state since he had fought against 2 Devil Emperors. His physical strength would suffer if he were to encounter a sage expert in this state. So, he needed to recover some of his strength. Not to mention, Jiangchen's injuries didn't look light either. Not far away, the group found a place to sit down cross-legged. Du Xiaofu began to heal his injuries and recover his strength. A moment later, golden light swirled around Du Xiaofu's body. An incomparably domineering aura spread out. Arcs of violet lightning danced on the surface of his body. As the lightning danced, the bloody hole in Du Xiaofu's shoulder caused by the scorpion tail and the serious injury to his calf slowly healed. This speed of recovery stunned Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others. This kind of physical strength was too monstrous and terrifying. He hadn't even set foot in the Sage Realm, but he could already fight Sage Realm experts with his physical strength. This was his own strength. In this strange space, his strength had been suppressed the entire time. After experiencing his first battle, Du Xiaofu recalled that his physical strength was his foundation. This was his own strength. When one's cultivation profundities and level of strength were removed, his physical body was his true foundation. The physical body is the foundation, the carrier, the foundation. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself, seeming to comprehend something. Jiangchen sat cross-legged, his body shrouded in a dark, murderous aura. It was hard to imagine that such a handsome man could be so terrifying. Time passed slowly. The strange space was very quiet. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen were both recovering. Whoosh! Several hours later, Du Xiaofu's tightly shut eyes trembled. Then he opened them. Dazzling golden light shone from his eyes, as if the image of a golden-winged rock was about to emerge from them. His aura shook the void. Such a commotion caused everyone to wake up one after another and stand up. Pipa! Du Xiaofu stood up and stretched his body. The joints in his body emitted crackling sounds, revealing a sense of explosive strength. However, Du Xiaofu's purple robes were ragged and his hair was disheveled. This was the result of his battle with the two demon emperors. This guy can actually recover so freakishly in this place. Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and many other elders secretly clicked their tongues. They sensed that Du Xiaofu's aura was no longer hindered. This was a strange, suppressed place. His recovery speed was too freakish. Swoosh swoosh. Suddenly, there was the sound of wind breaking in the distance. Two figures flew over from the void. Someone's coming. Are they friends or foes? Qi Jiajun and the others raised their heads. The two figures seemed to have high cultivation bases. The two figures landed. Their auras were ancient. Neither one of them was ordinary. It's those two old bastards. What I'm afraid of really comes true. When the two figures landed, Qi Jiajun's expression involuntarily sunk with a bitter smile on his face when he saw them. What I'm afraid of really does come true. I didn't expect to run into these two old bastards here. Chapter 2104. These two were none other than the divine ancestors of the Legalists and the Dragon Clan. Everyone present recognized them. Du Xiaofu recognized them as well. They'd crossed paths many times before. These two old bastards had tried to kill him time and time again. Back when he'd entered the heavenly devil battlefield from the school of Yin-Yang, if it hadn't been for the Moon Sage's protection, he would have been ambushed by these two old bastards and the three sacred ancestors of the school of vertical and horizontal. Qin Yanlong of the legalism and Long Qianshao of the dragons. Two saints. Feng Han's expression changed. His pale face was grave. Not long ago, he'd encountered the three demon emperors of the devil religion. Now, he'd encountered two saints of the legalism and the dragons. Everyone present knew that, compared to the devil religion, these two saints of the legalism and the dragons wanted Du Xiaofu dead more. Qin Yanlong and Long Qianshao. When Du Xiaofu learned the names of these two old bastards, a faint smile appeared on his face. He said meaningfully to Jiangchen, "I'll leave the dragons to you and the legalism to me. What do you think?" Dragons, huh? No problem. Jiangchen's calm expression rippled. To him, the dragons were rather special. All right. Du Xiaofu nodded. He stared at the two old bastards in front of him, not bothering to hide the murderous intent in his eyes. Having already fought the three demon emperors of the devil religion, Du Xiaofu had a clearer understanding of the physical strength of these saints in this strange, oppressive place. His own physical strength was completely fearless. If he were to encounter these two old fellows outside, Du Xiaofu could only flee as soon as possible. However, it was different here. Long Qianshao's physical strength was probably stronger than that of Qin Yunlong of the legalism. Du Xiaofu had sent Jiangchen to deal with Long Qianshao not because he wanted to pick a soft persimmon, but because Du Xiaofu wanted to kill Qin Yunlong of the legalism more. Du Xiaofu pondered in his heart. If he could take this opportunity to suppress this old bastard, he would be able to go to legalism and take his mother back. If he couldn't suppress him, then he could take this opportunity to kill him. This could be considered as solving a big problem, and it could greatly reduce the strength of legalism. At the front, Qin Yunlong and Long Qianshao swept their gazes across the crowd and saw Du Xiaofu immediately. Their gazes suddenly trembled as they looked at each other. Immediately, cold light filled their eyes as they sneered. You can wear out iron shoes in a fruitless search, only to find it by chance. Heaven is helping you. Qin Yunlong's expression was filled with killing intent as he sneered. This was practically delivering themselves to their doorstep. Originally, they'd wanted to find an opportunity to kill this brat. With Jialo Batian, Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and the others present, such an opportunity was too difficult to come by. They could only wait. They hadn't expected this brat to be here with a few small fish. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Long Qianchao's gaze swept around, wanting to see if there were any other experts nearby. He was a little worried. If Xian Gu, Jialo Batian, and the others were here, then they'd be in trouble. In the end, Long Qianchao discovered that Jialo Batian and the others were nowhere to be seen. It really was just this brat with a few small fish. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Let's get rid of this future trouble. Long Qianchao's voice was low and filled with killing intent. The image of a dragon seemed to fluctuate in his eyes. It was very terrifying. Huh? Suddenly, Qin Yanlong noticed something strange. That kid was walking straight towards them. He didn't even take a turn. He was walking straight towards them. This made Qin Yunlong feel very strange. Logically speaking, it was impossible for the brat to not see them. But now, not only did he not run away, but he was walking straight towards them. What was going on? In an instant, Qin Yunlong was suspicious. Thousands of thoughts rapidly passed through his mind. Could it be? Suddenly, Qin Yunlong thought of something. Could it be that this brat wanted to surrender to him? Qin Yunlong's heart immediately became tangled. Although he hated this brat to the bone, and even tearing him to pieces would not be enough to quell his anger, if this brat really wanted to surrender to him and return to legalism, then it would be a pity to kill him. If this brat were to return to legalism, then no one in the world would be able to compare with him in the future. All the previous grievances could be written off. The more Qin Yunlong thought about it, the more likely it seemed. After all, this brat's mother was still a student of legalism and had some misgivings. Now that he'd run into Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao here, the brat knew that only death awaited him, so it was only natural that he wanted to surrender. When he thought of this, Qin Yunlong couldn't help but feel a little smug. Back then, he'd intentionally put this brat's mother under house arrest. On the one hand, he wanted to prevent Du Shaojing from following in this brat's footsteps. On the other hand, he wanted to prevent this brat from truly growing up one day. Now, it seemed that he'd made the right move back then. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen walked straight towards them. They were now less than 100 feet away from Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao. To them, this distance was already very close, so close that they could instantly launch an explosive attack. Brat, no one will be protecting you today. Qin Yunlong sneered as he stared at Du Xiaofu. He'd already decided that even if this brat wanted to surrender, he'd teach him a good lesson today. He'd grind down his arrogance and suppress his arrogance. Otherwise, he'd be difficult to control in the future. Is it just you two old things? Du Xiaofu glanced at Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao before replying. He had a meaningful smile on his face the entire time. Qin Yunlong froze and immediately awoke from his dreams. This brat didn't look like he was surrendering at all. He clearly didn't care about them at all. Brat, you're courting death. Qin Yunlong was enraged. His eyes glowed with cold light and his voice shook the void. With just you two old things? I'm afraid that's not enough. We don't know who'll be the one courting death. Du Xiaofu said softly, a cold smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Cut the crap and attack. Long Qianchao was enraged. His eyes rippled with dragon shadows. This brat kept calling everyone old things, including him. He was furious beyond words. This was a heaven-sent opportunity. Long Qianchao wanted to personally finish off this brat so that he wouldn't fall into Qin Yunlong's hands. After all, this brat had many precious treasures and secrets on him. Swish! Long Qianchao attacked. Even though his cultivation was suppressed, his speed was still as fast as lightning. He crossed the distance of 100 meters in an instant. His claw tore through the void like a dragon's claw, capable of destroying everything. The Supreme Beast's aura didn't diminish at all. Dragons had extremely strong physical bodies. Even in this strange place of suppression, their dragon's aura was still impressive. You old thing, you're mine, Jiangchen said softly. Black murderous chi surged and blocked Long Qianchao's path. Boom! Qin Yanlong also made his move. His body was shrouded in light, causing the surrounding heavens and earth to tremble. A vast wave of energy suddenly swept out, causing the waves to ripple far away. It was as if the surrounding void was going to explode. Feng Han and the others in the distance were also affected. "Brat, you won't be able to escape this time," Qin Yunlong roared. His body was like lightning. He raised his arms and slapped his palms. Dazzling runes shone in front of his palms, filling the void with a vast aura. Qin Yunlong was very strong. His physical strength could suppress everything, shattering the sky. He slapped towards Du Xiaofu's head. "Old thing, you're too arrogant." Du Xiaofu met Qin Yunlong's attack with a punch. An incomparably domineering aura suddenly shot into the sky. Bang bang! Two muffled sounds like muffled thunder rang out at the same time. The void shattered, waves of energy swept out, and the surrounding earth cracked open. Jiangchen and Long Qianchao staggered backward. Wherever their feet passed, the ground cracked. Neither gained the upper hand. However, Du Xiaofu's figure only retreated 3 steps before he stabilized his body. On the other hand, Qin Yanlong's feet brushed against the ground as he retreated in a straight line. He only managed to stabilize his body after retreating several dozen feet. Qin Yunlong stomped his feet, causing the surrounding rocks to explode. His expression was instantly replaced by shock and astonishment. Qin Yunlong was shocked. His expression was almost blank. His palms were numb and throbbing with pain. His blood and qi were in turmoil. How is this possible? Qin Yunlong couldn't believe it. How could this kid be so strong? This couldn't be real. He was a Saint Realm cultivator. If it wasn't for Fu Yibai, Moon Saint, Jialo Batian, and the others intervening time and time again, this kid would have died countless times like an ant. How long had it been since then? How could this kid have such strength? Awoo! Qin Yunlong couldn't believe it. He attacked again. His body leapt into the air, and his physical strength erupted without reservation. Faint shadows of stars appeared in the void around him. Ferocious beasts roared and ferocious birds appeared. Strange phenomena filled the sky. This was a kind of physical strength. Incomparably powerful, it pressed down on the world. Du Xiaofu's back shone with dazzling golden light. It suddenly burst out from his body. In an instant, the golden rock wings on his back spread. Golden light overflowed, like a golden sun rising into the sky. The broad golden rock wings and blade-like feathers shot out from them. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's golden rock wings were even tougher and more terrifying than before. 36 true rock feathers were integrated into them, forming a sharp sawtooth shape. The golden rock wings on Du Xiaofu's back swept out. The energy swept out like a raging tide, shattering the space and sweeping away the strange phenomena around Qin Yunlong. "Kid, give me your life." Qin Yunlong's momentum was in front, but the real killing move was behind. His figure dived down, and a cold light shone. His fist carried the power to break heaven and earth, and violently pressed down on Du Xiaofu, who was still on the ground. Boom! This punch was like the weight of Mount Tai, and it was full of killing intent. Du Xiaofu's golden rock wings spread out behind his back. His eyes shone with a golden light as he stared at Qin Yunlong, who was diving down. In the next instant, Du Xiaofu took a step forward, causing the ground to crack and the air to explode. Almost in the blink of an eye, Du Xiaofu faced Qin Yunlong's fist that was pressing down on him. He raised his arm and fiercely punched out. Boom! Du Xiaofu's fist was covered in golden light. The space in front of his fist was directly distorted, as if it would explode at any time. Rumble! The two fists fiercely collided. At the moment of impact, a muffled sound of golden energy was heard. Circles of energy ripples swept out, and the surrounding space shattered into pieces. The surrounding ground exploded. Du Xiaofu's body sank into the ground. The soles of his feet were almost buried in the cracks on the ground, which almost reached his knees. The cracks on the ground spread out like a spider web. Humph! A muffled groan came from Qin Yunlong's throat. His body was blasted away in a parabola, and he only landed 100 feet away. Thump thump! Qin Yunlong retreated in panic and stopped in a sorry state. His face was pale and his throat was rolling. He was trying his best to hold back the surging blood in his body. At this moment, Qin Yunlong's eyes were almost popping out of their sockets. He couldn't believe that he was still at a disadvantage even with his full strength. He had suffered a great loss. His fist was numb and waves of intense pain assaulted him. If one looked carefully, there were already small cracks on the surface of his fist, and blood was flowing out. Chapter 2105. Qin Yunlong trembled a little. He knew that this strange place of suppression could suppress one's cultivation and techniques. Everything depended on one's physical strength. Since the beginning of his cultivation, he had practiced an extraordinary body tempering technique. Although his physical body was not comparable to the supreme beast clans like the Dragon Clan, which relied on their physical bodies to run rampant, it was definitely not far off. But now, Qin Yunlong had never imagined that his Sage Realm body would be in such a sorry state in front of this brat. How can such a freakish body exist? Qin Yunlong was shocked. His eyes trembled. Bang, bang. Off in the distance, the curtains to Jiangchen and Long Qianchao's duel began once more. The two figures moved as fast as lightning, exchanging dozens of blows in the blink of an eye. Boom! When their fists collided, both Jiangchen and Long Qianchao were sent flying backward. Shock filled Long Qianchao's aged face. He couldn't believe Jiangchen's strength, but then a cold smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Umph! With a cold snort, Long Qianchao raised his arm and clenched his fingers, transforming them into 5 streaks of black light that tore through space. The air exploded, and claws shot toward Jiangchen's face in an extremely tricky trajectory. Clang! Jiangchen's gaze darkened. Suddenly, his body underwent a strange transformation. He shook his arm, and his 5 fingers, sharp as blades, flickered with cold light. His arm transformed into the Golden Roar's sharp claws, blocking Long Qianchao's claws. Then, starting from his arm, his body transformed into the Golden Roar's true form, 300 meters tall. Golden Roar! Long Qianchao's expression changed drastically. He trembled violently, and his aged body instantly swelled with light. A dragon's roar filled the air. The dragon's roar filled the air. A moment later, a sea of clouds roiled and flames filled the air. The entire sky seemed to explode from the pressure. As Long Qianchao's body expanded, an incomparably enormous dragon appeared, its claws sharp enough to tear through space. When this huge dragon appeared, half of its body appeared in the sea of clouds in the sky. Its tail could not be seen, and its body was covered in flames. The flames covered the dragon's scales, but it gave people a feeling that it was as strong as steel. On its ferocious head, the dragon's eyes were like red black holes, as if they could devour the world. Everyone could not help but be shocked. This pressure caused Qi Jiajun and the others to feel a chill as they watched from afar. Roar! Jiangchen stepped forward. Even as Long Qianchao's true form exploded through the air, he advanced instead of retreating. His ferocious body tilted and his sharp claws danced in the air. Black fiendish aura swept out like a tornado and his attacks poured out like a torrential downpour. Like lightning, Jiangchen's sharp claws landed on Long Qianchao's body one after another. Roar! Long Qianchao roared. The dragon's roar shook the heavens. The indestructible dragon scales on his body actually showed signs of cracking. Dragon blood flowed out. Long Qianchao's enormous body flipped and his claws tore through the air. Flames surged. Long Qianchao endured the pain and resisted Jiangchen's attacks. The two of them separated. Jiangchen retreated. His body was covered in golden fur, his scales glittering, and his claws curved like hooks. The smell of blood filled his nose, and his eyes were as red as cinnabar. He stared fixedly at Long Qianchao, his eyes blazing as if he'd spotted his prey. When Long Qianchao met Jiangchen's gaze, he couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. The golden growler was the sworn enemy of dragons. It could even kill dragons and swallow clouds. Roar! Jiangchen's ferocious body pounced again, charging straight at Long Qianchao. Roar! Long Qianchao was shocked. Injured and furious, he fought back. Bang bang bang. Shocking explosions erupted. Jiang Chen's golden growler and Long Qianchao's bodies clashed fiercely. Muffled sounds of collision rang out, accompanied by terrifying fluctuations of power. One of them was the original body of the golden growler, while the other was the body of the dragon clan. Both of them were existences with powerful physical bodies. The wild and violent force that spread out from the intense collision caused the scalps of Feng Han, Qi Jiajun and the others in the distance to turn numb. In particular, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and the others found it hard to believe that physical strength alone could reach such a terrifying level. Jiang Chen is terrifying. Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and a few elders from the school of Yin-Yang watched Jiang Chen and Long Qianchao's fierce battle. Jiang Chen's ability to fight to a standstill in front of the Dark Phoenix, one of the devil religion's 8 demon emperors, had already shocked everyone. But in comparison, they were unfamiliar with the 8 demon emperors. They were more familiar with Long Qianchao. Long Qianchao's strength was self-evident. As a sage realm cultivator, his true form as a dragon's went without saying. Right now, the two of them were fighting hand to hand. Jiang Chen even had a slight advantage. How terrifying was that? Old bastard, this place is very fair. It's not your turn to be arrogant. Du Xiaofu continued to attack. This was a rare opportunity. If he couldn't suppress Qin Yunlong, he'd kill him. The rock wings on his back flapped, restoring his advantage of flight. His hand glowed with violet gold as he clenched the violet gold heavenly tower. Sword light pierced through the air, and killing intent swept across the strange land. Little bastard! Qin Yunlong roared, his old face extremely ugly. Faced with Du Xiaofu's aggressive attacks, he had no choice but to fight back. Kill! Du Xiaofu roared. Golden light surged, like a rock in human form. Sword light filled the sky and enveloped Qin Yunlong. Qin Yunlong didn't have time to roar. He didn't hold back his physical strength and used all kinds of physical techniques, but he was still suppressed. Every time he was forced to fight back, he was forced to retreat. After a dozen moves, Qin Yunlong couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. His clothes were tattered and torn by the sword light. Even the hair around his ears was cut off. Too strong. Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others smiled bitterly. They were originally worried about Du Xiaofu. After all, the Demon King had fought against 2 demon emperors not long ago. But now, it seemed that the Demon King had completely recovered. The 2 demon emperors had been crushed and fled. Under this strange suppressive force, how could Qin Yanlong defeat this Demon King by relying on his physical strength alone? Gulp, Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, and the others swallowed their saliva. Their beautiful faces changed constantly as they looked at the 2 people fighting in front of them. The Demon King was like a peerless, ferocious beast, like a rock in human form. He was too domineering. Every time he collided with Qin Yunlong, there would be a dull sound, which made them shudder with fear. Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, and the others were undoubtedly the most familiar with Du Xiaofu. Back in Tianwu Academy, Du Xiaofu was so domineering that he crushed all his opponents. Today, the Demon King had risen in the world. He was as domineering and powerful as ever. Not long after, Qin Yunlong spat out a second mouthful of blood. His hair was disheveled, and his robe was torn. He was in a sorry state. Qin Yunlong's eyes were filled with horror, and he felt a chill in his heart. He didn't know how long it had been since he had felt such a chill in his heart. He had almost forgotten this feeling. But at this moment, the chill in his heart made Qin Yunlong's divine soul tremble. Old man, under fairness, you don't have any qualification to flaunt your seniority in front of me. Golden light flickered. Du Xiaofu swooped down from the sky with the golden rock wings on his back. He raised his fist and punched directly at Qin Yunlong. At this moment, Du Xiaofu and the golden rock wings completely suppressed the former in terms of speed. Qin Yunlong didn't have much chance to dodge. He could only grit his teeth and take the attack head-on. And taking the attack head-on was also Du Xiaofu's intention. Bang! With a dull sound, the surrounding ground exploded. Qin Yunlong spat out a third mouthful of blood. His fist was already stained with blood, and his body was sent flying backward. Rumble! Just as Du Xiaofu was about to press the advantage, a torrent of fire suddenly appeared in the sky, shattering space. It was a giant tail that smashed through the void like a heavenly pillar. It surged through the sea of clouds and swept towards Du Xiaofu with unparalleled momentum. This was Long Qianchao's enormous tail, and it wasn't intentional. The battlefield was simply too close to each other, and Long Qianchao's body was impossibly long. As he fought fiercely with Jiangchen, his enormous body tore through space, and he accidentally swept towards Du Xiaofu. In the face of the giant tail sweeping towards him, Du Xiaofu didn't even raise his head. He slashed out with the heavenly tower of purple gold. There was nothing fancy about it. Like splitting Mount Hua, sword light tore through the void and landed directly on Long Qianchao's tail. Crackle! Golden spears exploded, and flames raged. The scales on Long Qianchao's enormous tail shattered, and dragon blood spilled. Roar! The pitiful Long Qianchao let out a miserable cry. He was enraged by the unexpected attack and was immediately wounded. Boom! Long Qianchao's tail swept towards Du Xiaofu. Long Qianchao was furious, but Du Xiaofu had long since dodged. The tail missed and flattened a nearby mountain. The earth quaked and mountains shook, filling the air with dust. Roar! Jiangchen's attacks were like lightning, and his power was like a tidal wave that shook half the sky. It was incomparably terrifying and violent. Long Qianchao had no time to pay attention to Du Xiaofu. He couldn't even take care of himself, so he could only bitterly suffer this loss. Swoosh! When Du Xiaofu dodged Long Qianchao's tail, Qin Yunlong appeared. He leapt into the air and pointed a finger at the back of Du Xiaofu's head like a bolt of lightning. His killing intent overflowed, and he was incomparably vicious. Chapter 2106. Translator. H2D2 Mr. Du Xiaofu sensed it and did not use the golden rock wings to defend himself. His face darkened as he turned around and sent out a similar finger seal. A pitch-black light appeared in front of the finger seal. The speed was extremely fast, and it happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. The two finger imprints were like two bolts of lightning as they collided head-on. Gotcha! The finger imprints collided with a deep sonic boom. Amidst the surging light, the surrounding void shattered. Immediately, a cracking sound was heard from Qin Yanlong's finger. Qin Yanlong let out a blood-curdling scream as his face turned deathly pale. He could feel that Du Xiaofu's finger was like an indestructible artifact. It was accompanied by a terrifyingly tyrannical force that poured into his body, causing his finger to break off. The 10 fingers were connected to the heart, and the pain was unbearable. Du Xiaofu's body was only slightly shaken backwards. A cold glint flashed across his eyes when he heard Qin Yunlong's miserable shriek. Swish! In the next moment, Du Xiaofu's left fist broke through the air and smashed the space. At the same time, his right hand swung out with the purple gold heavenly tower. The sword light on his fist smashed down with an earth-shattering force. Bang! Bang! Qin Yanlong dodged the sword light, but was hit in the shoulder by a punch. Under the impact of the huge force, his body immediately fell backward and landed heavily on the ground in the distance, causing the entire ground to tremble. Gravel shot out and dust spread. Swish! Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to kill him while he was down. The purple gold heavenly tower in his hand slashed down. The sword light broke through the air and the ground cracked. A long gully was cut open. Swish! Qin Yanlong dodged. After all, he was not a weakling. He rushed out of the ground and his body was covered in blood. However, he turned around and fled. Retreat! Retreat quickly! Qin Yanlong shouted and turned around to escape. Qin Yanlong's figure moved like lightning. His eyes were filled with unwillingness, shock, rage, and resentment. However, he did not dare to stop. He'd already completely realized that if he continued to delay in this strange place that was being suppressed, then he would definitely be killed because that kid's body was truly too abnormal. Compared to Qin Yanlong, Long Qianchao's situation was slightly better. However, he was also in a very sorry state. His dragon scales were broken and he was bleeding profusely. When they saw that Qin Yanlong had actually turned around and fled, no one dared to stop him. Long Qianchao did not dare to stay any longer. If the two of them ganged up on him, he would not be able to pay the price. "Follow me." Du Xiaofu's voice resounded in the ears of Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, Gu Xinyan, Dai Xingyu, Tang Miling and the little tiger. He flapped his golden wings and chased after Qin Yanlong like a flash of golden lightning. This was a rare opportunity, and Du Xiaofu didn't want to let it go. If he left this place, he would have to wait until he stepped into the Saint Realm before he could have the opportunity to suppress the old man. Jiangchen Golden Growler also chased after Long Qianchao. Everywhere it passed, crimson smoke billowed and spread for thousands of miles. After him, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, Dai Xingyu, and the little tiger looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock. These two terrifying figures had scared off another two Saint Realm experts. Thus, a shocking scene occurred along the way in this strange place. An expert and a giant dragon were fleeing in a sorry state. Not far behind them, two figures were chasing after them, their roars like thunder. Such a scene was simply earth-shattering along the way. Roar! Qin Yanlong, you old thing. Old man, don't run if you dare. Is that all the courage of the dignified sacred ancestor of legalism? Qin Yanlong, you're really shameless. Don't run if you dare. Long Qianchao, you old worm, didn't you want to kill me? Don't run if you dare. This strange land was vast, and there were many people who were trapped in it along the way. Some of the living beings who saw this scene along the way were all shocked and trembling. Don't be so arrogant, you little bastard. Once we get out of here, I'll tear you to pieces. Bastards, I won't let you get away with this. Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao heard the curses behind them and thought about how their two Saint Realm experts had been reduced to such a sorry state. They couldn't help but erupt in fury. However, neither Qin Yanlong nor Long Qianchao had any intention of stopping. Instead, they ran even faster, afraid that Du Xiaofu and Long Qianchao would catch up to them. Qin Yanlong, Long Qianchao. Aren't they the sacred ancestors of legalism and the sacred ancestors of dragons? There were people from the 9 great clans along the way, and some of them recognized Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao as the sacred ancestors of legalism and the sacred ancestors of dragons. Heavens! It's the Demon King Du Xiaofu. He's hunting down the sacred ancestors of legalism and the dragons. Everyone was flabbergasted. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it. What's going on here? Don't tell me that the Demon King Du Xiaofu has broken through to the Sage Realm? Some people wondered. The Demon King Du Xiaofu was fierce and powerful, but he shouldn't be strong enough to hunt down a Sage Realm expert. Unless, of course, the Demon King Du Xiaofu had also broken through to the Sage Realm. The Demon King Du Xiaofu probably hasn't broken through to the Sage Realm yet, but in this strange place, everyone's cultivation bases and techniques are suppressed. They can only rely on the strength of their physical bodies. The Demon King Du Xiaofu's body has always been very strong. Perhaps it's his physical strength that's suppressing the Sage Realm experts. An old man with good eyesight guessed something was wrong. In this strange place, their cultivation was also suppressed. What kind of freakish physical body is that? When everyone heard this, they trembled in shock. He hadn't even set foot in the Sage Realm, but his physical strength could already suppress that of a Sage Realm expert. That was absolutely freakish. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen were chasing after Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao. Du Xiaofu's speed was supported by his great peng wings. He was like a tiger with wings. However, Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao were intent on fleeing. It wasn't easy to catch up. The Saint Stage cultivators were suppressed in this strange place, but their Saint Stage bodies still had a lot of advantages. Jiangchen tailed them with unbelievable speed. He wasn't too far behind Du Xiaofu. However, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others had long since been left in the dust. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Rumble. Du Xiaofu chased after them, constantly swinging his sword and punching. The ground was a mess. Although Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao didn't suffer any substantial injuries, they were still battered and exhausted. After about 2 hours, Qin Yanlong and Long Qianshao fled at top speed. The distance between them grew shorter and shorter. The two Sage Realm experts were in an extremely sorry state. It was getting harder and harder for them to hold on. A vast square appeared. Around the square, there were many figures, and there were also many valiant auras fluctuating. Chapter 2107. Their field of vision gradually widened, and the fog that had covered the sky gradually became clearer and began to fade. Rather than saying that the plaza was vast, it was more accurate to say that it was vast. It was so vast that it was shocking. However, in front of the vast plaza, there was a huge abyss that spanned tens of thousands of feet. The abyss was suffused with white fog, and at the end of it, a huge object appeared in Du Xiaofu's sight. The huge object stood at the end of the abyss in the vast plaza, like a cosmic beast that was in a deep slumber. It was the huge object that everyone had seen when they first entered the eternal tomb. When Du Xiaofu saw the huge object, he involuntarily slowed down, and then stopped in the plaza. Looking ahead, Du Xiaofu's eyes rippled. Now that he was close, Du Xiaofu could see clearly that the huge object that resembled a cosmic beast was like a falling star. It was too big and too vast, and one could not see the end of it. It was like a complete star that had fallen at the end of the abyss in the plaza, in the shape of millions of mountains. Its entire body was an ancient mottled bronze color. After countless years, from ancient times to the present, its bronze color had become even more profound. It was like a heavenly tomb that stood in the heavenly demon battlefield. Vaguely, there was a heart-palpitating aura that emanated from every corner of the huge object, causing one's heart to palpitate and his spirit to tremble for no reason. It was not hard to imagine that many peerless and terrifying objects were buried in this huge tomb. Once it was opened, it might be able to devour the world. In the vast plaza, in front of the abyss that was tens of thousands of feet wide, there were 13 ancient arched bridges. They were all tens of thousands of feet apart, but they were all lined up side by side across the abyss, connecting to the 13 huge entrances of the huge tomb. The 13 arched bridges spanned across the huge abyss. The material seemed to be the same as the huge tomb, deep and ancient bronze. Ancient runes were engraved on them, and they flickered with light. In front of each of the 13 arched bridges, there was a stone platform. The 13 stone platforms were in the shape of budding lotuses, as if they were covering something. Du Xiaofu's eyes fell on the 13 lotus stone platforms, and his heart began to beat violently. For some reason, he shuddered, and his spirit began to throb. It's definitely hiding something. Du Xiaofu was stunned. He looked at the 13 lotus flower stone platforms. They were absolutely extraordinary. The coercion they exuded was even more terrifying than that of an ordinary Saint Realm expert. It seemed quiet without any fluctuations. However, there was an invisible coercion that could penetrate the spiritual soul of a living creature. It felt as if a 10,000-pound boulder was crushing one's heart. From this feeling, it was not difficult for Du Xiaofu to know that there was definitely an enormous danger hidden within the 13 budding lotus stone platforms. Judging from everything that had happened in the eternal tomb, Du Xiaofu secretly guessed that this was definitely not a good place. If he was not careful, he might die inside. His gaze swept across. There were already many figures appearing in the surroundings. However, the square was too big. A person standing in it was like an ant, but the invisible aura that emanated from those figures was extremely tyrannical. Among these figures, Du Xiaofu also saw many familiar figures, including his grandfather Jialo Badian, Xian Gu, Moon Saint, Shi Yishi, Sima Muhan, his big brother Zhen Qingchun, the 18 celestial guards, and others. They all appeared here. There were also many figures from Confucianism, Taoism, the school of agriculture, and Buddhism. Du Xiaofu also saw the figures of the devil religion. There were many people in the distance. Moksha and Jialo Juelyao were nowhere to be seen, but Mo Lingzi and the 7, 8, and 9 demon emperors were there. When he saw the 7, 8, and 9 demon emperors, a cold smile involuntarily flashed across Du Xiaofu's face. Jiangchen landed behind Du Xiaofu and watched the scene in front of him. The vast scale of the scene left him dazed for quite a while. Only after a while did he recover his wits, his eyes filled with astonishment. This kind of boundless wealth was something that not even the 9 great clans, the dragons, the phoenixes, and other superpowers at their peak could afford. Compared to Du Xiaofu and Jiangxin's astonishment, the gazes of those around the square were filled with astonishment. A giant dragon roared. Qin Yunlong roared angrily, then rushed into the square in a sorry state. Everyone was dumbfounded. In particular, those with tyrannical auras glanced at each other, their faces filled with suspicion. When Du Xiaofu and Jiangxin appeared, they immediately attracted everyone's attention. Heavens, it really is the legendary Golden Growler. Many old people were also shocked. Their eyes trembled when they saw Jiangxin's true form. Jiangxin's Golden Growler's body reeked of blood. Its incomparably sinister appearance made one's hair stand on end. It's the president. The Rock Emperor is here. Zhen Qingchun, one of the 18 celestial guards and the child of the sacred formation, looked delighted. What happened to the two of you? In the corner of the crowd stood a group of people. When they saw Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao fleeing in such a sorry state, their faces twitched in shock. There were only 20 or so of them. Leading them were Su Sanyan, Shi Yu, and the other saints. Du Xiaojing was among them. The others also seemed to be disciples of the legalism, the school of famers, the school of vertical and horizontal, the demon vulture clan, and the heavenly serpent clan. No one knew where they'd found them. When they'd entered the tomb of eternity, they'd yet to be seen. Only then did Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao's figures come to a stop. They fled in a panic, but when they saw the shocking scene in front of them, their faces paled. Hearing the voices of Su Sanyan and the others, Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao finally came to their senses. They swept their gazes over Su Sanyan and the others. Then, as if sensing something, their faces darkened to the extreme. They turned to stare at Du Xiaofu and Jiangxin. With a sinister sneer, they said with boundless hatred, "You two bastards, keep chasing." Their voices shook the vast square like thunder. Everyone present was flabbergasted. Could it be that Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao were being chased by the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and that Golden Growler? Seeing the atmosphere, some people guessed that Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao were being chased by the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and that Golden Growler. We've lost our chance. Sigh. Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao had already turned around. That enormous dragon body was hovering upside down in the air. Qin Yunlong's body was glowing with light. His body, which was riddled with scars, seemed to be recovering at an extremely slow speed. He was no longer bleeding. Du Xiaofu's heart sank. He sighed. He could sense that the square was no longer suppressed. Although his heart sank, Du Xiaofu's mouth was unforgiving. Looking at Long Qianchao and Qin Tianshi, he sneered, "What, aren't you two old fools running away? Just now, you were running away like dogs." Damn, the divine ancestor of legalism, Qin Yunlong, and the divine ancestor of dragons, Long Qianchao, are really being chased by the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and the others. This can't be real, right? Two saints being chased by the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and the others. Looking at Long Qianchao and Qin Yunlong's miserable appearances, it seems to be real. Hearing the conversation between Qin Yunlong and Du Xiaofu, the whole square couldn't help but be silent for a moment. Then, everyone's eyes trembled as discussions exploded. Boo! The vast square trembled. A dragon's roar shook the sky. A vast wave of energy swept across the heaven and earth. It was as if the 9 heavens were shaken. Qin Tianshi soared into the sky. Resplendent runes shone around him, illuminating the sky. In an instant, with Qin Yunlong as the center, stars appeared in the sky. Ferocious beasts roared and ferocious birds appeared. The vision in the sky was unparalleled. It was as if a world had descended. A huge dragon appeared. The broken dragon scales on its body were recovering. A torrential sea of clouds appeared around it. Raging flames filled the air. The dragon's claws could tear apart the void. The square was no longer suppressed. Qin Yunlong and Long Qianchao were furious. This was their true strength. At this moment, everything had been reversed. "Bastard, you're courting death. Qin Yunlong roared. His resplendent figure appeared in the vision, making him look like a deity. His might had descended upon the world. All the living beings in the square felt a pressure that came from the depths of their souls. They wanted to prostrate themselves in reverence. At this moment, even the sage realm experts present could feel the burning anger in Qin Yanlong's body. It seemed that Qin Yanlong was extremely angry. Now, you have no right to be arrogant. It's time to pay the price. Long Qianchao's body was covered in flames. His dragon eyes were like scarlet black holes as he stared at Jiangchen and Du Xiaofu. What a savage tone! A domineering voice echoed through the square. Jialo Baishan's figure soared into the sky, accompanied by golden light. Behind him, Saint Feng Qi, Moon Saint, and Xian Gu stood together. The auras of the four saints surged, causing the ancient world to freeze. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. How could Jialo Batian sit idly by when Qin Yunlong and the others wanted to deal with his own grandson? Do you want to start a war? Su Sanyan asked. As his figure soared into the sky, a ball of fire appeared in the void around him. It wasn't an open flame, but it burned the void until it was a blur. Su Sanyan stood in the void of fire. The vast aura on his body was no less than that of Qin Yunlong, who had legalism. Behind him were the four saints of the Heavenly Serpent clan, the Demon Vulture clan, and the Red Fire Demon Lion clan. In an instant, the void trembled. The saints confronted each other. Their vast auras made the souls of all living beings tremble. They wanted to prostrate themselves in worship. More than 10 saints. That was an unstoppable pressure. A saint could kill millions of people in a fit of rage. They could destroy the world and make the sun and moon dim. This vast square was very strange and sturdy. If this was the outside world, the aura of more than 10 Saint Realm experts would be enough to shatter mountains and rivers and cause a catastrophe. The many living beings around the square who weren't strong enough didn't dare to speak under the pressure of more than 10 saints. They prostrated themselves in worship. The several demon emperors in the devil religion's lineup also stared intently. Let's fight. I haven't exercised my muscles for a long time. Facing Su Sanyan, Qin Yunlong, and Long Qianchao, Jialo Baishan's expression didn't change. He was as domineering as ever. With a sweep of his long sleeve, the sky was filled with golden light. A golden ocean appeared in the void. The golden space rippled like a tide. Let's fight. Today, we must get rid of that little bastard. Qin Yunlong roared furiously. He knew that Saint Feng Qi wasn't simple, especially Jialo Batian, Moon Saint, and Xian Gu. They weren't ordinary either. Not long ago, he had to endure because of his scruples. But now, Qin Yunlong personally felt the terror of Du Xiaofu. If he continued to grow like this, it wouldn't be long before they couldn't keep him in check. Chapter 2108. You want to touch my scholarly faction's grand shaman? Qin Yanlong, Long Qianchao, and Su Sanyan? It's been a long time since I've exercised my muscles and bones. Let's spar. A hearty voice was heard as a middle-aged Confucian scholar appeared in the void. His Confucian robes were elegant, and his temperament was extraordinary. He was a saint of the Confucian school. Meng Qianhe, does the Confucian school want to get involved as well? Qin Yanlong looked at the middle-aged saint of the Confucian school with an ugly expression. Immeasurable deity, the Rock Emperor has a close relationship with us Taoists. It's been a long time since these old bones of mine have exercised. A Taoist saint appeared. His hair was combed into a high bun, and his face was ruddy. He seemed to be smiling all the time, and a boundless aura spread out. Although the Rock Emperor is young, this old woman admires him very much and has a good relationship with my farmers' guild. If someone wants to fight, then this old woman can only accompany them. The Saint Realm expert of the School of Agriculture walked out. His hair was white, and his eyes were as deep as the sea on his old face. The Rock Emperor came from the ancient Heaven sect and has a close relationship with my Mo family. If anyone dares to touch him, my Mo family will not be courteous. The Saint Realm expert from the Mo family also walked out. His figure was small and skinny under his loose robe, but the space around him was faintly distorted. His aura was gentle and vast. Taoist Qing Feng, Jiang Yuechan, Hu Xuanhu. Qin Yanlong's expression turned extremely gloomy when he saw that the three Saint Realm experts from the Taoist school, the School of Agriculture, and the School of Mo had also arrived. He gritted his teeth. Originally, although the 7 of them had the advantage in numbers, they didn't have much confidence in dealing with Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and the others. Now that Meng Qianhe, Taoist Qing Feng, Jiang Yuechan, and Hu Xuanhu, the 4 Saint Realm experts, had decided to protect that kid, they had no advantage at all. If they really fought, they would be the ones to suffer. It's not a bad idea for both sides to lose. In the devil religion's lineup, the 7 devil emperors and the others sneered. If the 9 great dragons and phoenixes were to fight until both sides suffered, it would save them a lot of trouble. Amitabha. A monk covered in golden Buddha light came forward. He looked at everyone present and said in a Sanskrit voice, "Inside the eternal tomb, it's hard to predict fortune and misfortune. Danger lurks everywhere. Why do you have to do this?" The gazes of Qin Yanlong, Long Chenchao, Saint Feng Qi, and the others fluctuated in their hearts when they heard this. If they really fought, then with their cultivations, then both sides would absolutely suffer heavy injuries in the end. Qin Yunlong and Long Chenchao stared fixedly at Du Xiaofu. They were truly unwilling to accept this outcome, and their hatred overflowed. A dignified Saint Realm cultivator was being hunted down by 2 juniors, and there was nothing he could do at this moment. It was really unbearable. Let's think about it at length. Su Sanyan said as the illusory flame around his body fluctuated. He could see the current situation clearly. If they were to fight, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. This isn't over. Brat, let's see how long you can hide. Don't fall into my hands. Qin Yanlong stared at Du Xiaofu with cold eyes. Under such circumstances, he couldn't do anything. He forcibly suppressed the monstrous murderous intent and gritted his teeth in hatred. Qin Yanlong retreated with Long Qianchao and the others into the distance with ugly expressions. Jialo Badian, Moon Saint, and the others watched as Qin Yanlong and the others left. They had no intention of making a move. They didn't lose anything, and they didn't want to do anything at this moment. Jialo Badian wasn't afraid, but because there were too many disciples and juniors in their respective clans. If Qin Yanlong and the others became anxious and made a move on their juniors, then even they would have a hard time stopping it. They would have to pay a heavy price. Meddlesome bald donkey. Looking at the monk wrapped in golden Buddha light, the 9 demon emperor was somewhat disappointed. If the 9 clans were to fight, then they would be able to reap the benefits. Du Xiaofu, Meng Qianhe, Taoist Qing Feng, and the other saints of Confucianism, Taoism, School of Agriculture, and School of Moism bowed and greeted them. They also followed Jialo Badian, Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and Feng Qi Saint into the crowd. The 4 saints of Confucianism, Taoism, School of Moism, and School of Agriculture simply called the disciples of their respective clans and walked together with the Golden-Winged Rock Clan, School of Yin-Yang, School of Phoenix, and the others. Anyway, many of them were already familiar with each other and weren't strangers. "Child, are you all right?" Old Granny Jialo Maluo looked worried when she saw Du Xiaofu. After all, Du Xiaofu's clothes were ragged and his hair was disheveled. He looked somewhat miserable. "Grandma, I'm fine." Du Xiaofu patted his chest, full of vigor, and told everyone about the situation in the strange place of suppression. He didn't hide the fact that he fought the demon emperors of the devil religion and pursued Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao. Huff, Saint Feng Qi, Taoist Qing Feng, Meng Qianhe, Patriarch Meng Wen, and the others gasped when they heard Du Xiaofu's words. If they hadn't seen Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao fleeing with their own eyes, they would have found it hard to believe that these 2 little guys were actually saints who could break through the physical strength of their bodies and pursue Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao. What a freakish physical body! Then, Meng Qianhe, Jiang Yuechan, Hu Xuanhu, and the other experts smiled bitterly. No wonder Qin Yanlong and Long Qianchao looked like they wouldn't stop until one of them was dead. It turned out that they had suffered greatly. Saints were chased all the way by 2 juniors. Such humiliation was a great humiliation for them. Jalobatian was all smiles. His good grandson had once again made him proud. Then, Du Xiaofu learned from big brother Zhen Qingchun, Jalobatian, and the others that after the strange separation, they went to different places. The other places didn't have the cultivation strength suppressed, but they were also very dangerous. Along the way, many living beings were killed, and they also came across the corpses of many ancestors of the big clans. From Zhou Xiaoluo, Kong Sansi, and the others, Du Xiaofu learned that everyone had encountered the same thing, and the journey was very dangerous. But they could see the giant in front of the square from afar. They had also come all the way here. Sweeping his gaze across the crowd, Du Xiaofu found that there were still many people who hadn't arrived. His drunkard father, Dongli Qingqing, Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, Su Muxin, and the others hadn't arrived yet. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but feel a little worried. This place was too dangerous. This time, Du Xiaofu carefully scanned the vast plaza. There were many people around him. Aside from some loose cultivators, most of them were from influential clans in the 3 continents and 9 continents. There were as many experts as there were clouds, and many of their hidden auras were not to be underestimated. As Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across, he met many gazes. Some were wary, some were hostile, and some were friendly. Du Xiaofu didn't pay much attention to these gazes. He saw many familiar faces in the crowd, such as Xiang Wushuang and Hongyue. What's that place? Du Xiaofu's gaze finally landed on the giant in front of them. Looking at it from afar, he felt how small he was. This is the core of the eternal tomb. All the mysteries of the past are buried there. If we can get in, we should be able to unravel all the mysteries. Jalobatian stared ahead, facing the colossus in front of him. He was equally shocked. He paused for a moment, then said to Du Xiaofu with a hint of longing and anticipation, "Perhaps there are still experts inside who have not truly died." Du Xiaofu's eyes trembled. He thought for a while and said, "Why hasn't anyone gone inside? See those 13 bridges? The abyss is impossible to cross. The bridges are passageways, but the passageways don't seem to have been opened. We've all tried, but no one can get close," the Moon Saint said. His eyes were hazy and full of mystery. Du Xiaofu finally understood. No wonder so many people were waiting. It turned out that there was no way to get in. If even saints had tried, there was no need to think about the others. Du Xiaofu straightened his clothes after a while. Looking at the densely packed figures in the square, he felt emotional. Many of his enemies who wanted to kill him had appeared. He knew that they would kill him if they had the chance, but there was nothing he could do. His mother was still in legalism. His master had been captured by the devil religion. With people from the devil religion and legalism around, there was nothing he could do. Strange. When will I be able to step into the saint plane? Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. If he had already stepped into the saint plane, he would at least be able to fight these people head-on. Whoosh, whoosh, from time to time, there were beings entering the square from many places. There were people from Confucianism, the school of agriculture, and the school of Yinyang. There was no lack of people Du Xiaofu was familiar with. Feng Han, Qi Jiejun, Tang Meiling, Little Tiger, and Dai Xingyu had all arrived. While they were still in shock, someone had already gone to lead the way. Not long after, Du Tingxian, Dongli Qingqing, Yi Zijin, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoman, and many others had also arrived at the square. Soon after, Zishuan, Su Muxin, Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoyao, and Demo Tianxiao had also arrived. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaohuang, Gu Qingyang, Lian Qingrong, Dongfang Qingmu, and a group of people swaggered to the square. "Father!" Du Xiaohuang rushed over, blinking her big eyes. She was incomparably cute. However, among the disciples of the school of agriculture and the school of Taoism, some of the more timid ones involuntarily distanced themselves from Du Xiaohuang. Everyone knew that this little girl looked harmless, but in fact, she was the most terrifying. Ordinary supreme beings did not dare to provoke her. Chapter 2109. It's good that everyone is fine. Du Xiaofu smiled at the crowd. Now, he was completely relieved. The people he had been worried about were fine. Boom. Demonic chi came, solidifying the void. A black figure came quietly, surrounded by a torrential demonic chi. There were many figures behind him. Their auras were powerful, and their demonic chi covered the void. It's him, the strongest demon emperor. Du Xiaofu raised his head. That aura was familiar. It was the strongest demon emperor who had escaped from the suppression of the fire lightning master. Behind this strongest demon emperor were Moksha, Jialo Juexiao, and many powerful evil spirits and demonic beasts. Juexiao might have completely turned into a demon. The old lady looked at Jialo Juexiao who had passed by, and her body trembled slightly. This might be the will of the heavens. Jialo Badian patted his wife's shoulder. His golden eyes flickered with some disappointment and pain. He didn't feel good in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. Great Demon Emperor. Moon Saint looked at the black figure standing in the void and frowned. She had glimpsed a corner of the future and participated in the great calamity of ancient times, but she knew that she wasn't enough to stop it. The black figure landed beside the 8 demon emperors, the 7 demon emperors, and the others. His eyes swept across the crowd, lingering on Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and the others for a while. Finally, he looked at the colossus in front of him. His black eyes were like 2 black holes in the void, rippling. Boom! Suddenly, the entire vast square trembled. This trembling was very strange, and it made everyone's heart beat along with it. Walala! The thousands of feet wide abyss in front of them began to be dyed with light, and a gorgeous light screen appeared. Multicolored light flowed in the light screen, and an ancient aura was reflected on the 13 arched bronze bridges, making them dazzling. The bronze glowed, and the runes fluctuated. It was like a holy land, the entrance of an immortal's cave. Crack! In front of the 13 arched bronze bridges, 13 budding lotus stone platforms bloomed like lotus flowers, releasing monstrous light and ancient aura. When the stone lotus bloomed, 13 figures sat cross-legged within it. The strange thing was that these 13 figures looked exactly the same, as if they were 13 twins. The 13 figures who were sitting cross-legged each held an ancient longsword in their arms. The sword seemed to be covered in dust, and its light was dim. These figures were dressed in simple and unadorned clothes. Their hair reached their shoulders, and from afar, they looked like old monks in meditation. Their eyes were tightly shut, and they maintained that posture. It was unknown how many years had passed. However, at this moment, these 13 figures caused the gazes of everyone present to change greatly. No one dared to casually step forward. They are phantoms. Those 13 figures are just energy phantoms. Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. The 13 identical figures sitting cross-legged were not real, but illusory figures on the stone platform. Such a discovery immediately caused a commotion around the square. This aura feels familiar. Among the desolate country's crowd, Lord Thunderhawk and Lord Myeming looked at the shocking scene in front of them with astonishment in their eyes. It's strange. Everyone be careful. Moon Saint said in a low voice, her starry eyes rippling as she looked at the 13 illusory figures without any aura. It shouldn't be a good place. Those 13 energy phantoms are not simple. Jalobadian looked up, and his expression turned serious. His intuition told him that those 13 energy phantoms were not simple. Later, everyone, don't act rashly. Let's look out for each other and help each other. Du Xiaofu reminded everyone with a serious expression. With such a change, the 13 energy phantoms sat cross-legged. The crowd was in an uproar, and they looked at each other, but no one had the intention to step forward. At this time, the road was full of danger, and no one wanted to put themselves in danger. If they were not careful, they might become cannon fodder. Humph! The strongest demon emperor walked out, and his black figure stood in the void. His black hole-like eyes stared at the phantoms of the stone platform in front of one of the arched bridges, and the scene of blood flowing and all living beings wailing in pain appeared in his eyes. This demon king was fearless, and he didn't care about the people around him. Wherever his eyes passed, all living beings trembled. His figure moved across the sky, and he wanted to cross an arched bridge to enter the heavenly tomb like Behemoth. Boom! Just as the great demon emperor approached, the arched bridge in front of him suddenly trembled violently, and a dazzling light erupted from the abyss. Runes flowed, and the abyss boiled. At the same time, the illusory figure sitting cross-legged on the lotus stone platform suddenly opened his eyes. Those eyes, which seemed to have not been opened for countless years, were filled with an extremely rich murderous aura. At this moment, it soared into the sky. Chi! The phantoms didn't get up, but the sword in their bosom had already been slashed out. The dim sword shadow instantly became dazzling, like the most terrifying thunderbolt, and its murderous aura was boundlessly terrifying. Chi-la, as the sword light slashed out, the void exploded wherever it passed, as if it could cut through everything. Pretending to be mysterious, but it's a pity that you can no longer stop me. The great demon emperor spoke. The phantoms were huge, and terrifying demonic auras were fluctuating around them. They were like a black sun in the sky, overlooking the phantoms on the stone platform, revealing a contemptuous and dominant attitude. Chi-la. As the great demon emperor's voice faded, a soul-stealing demonic aura swept out, and a jet-black light palm was slapped out. Indistinct howls of countless living beings could be heard, as if they were carrying the world's resentment and baleful aura. Wherever the palm passed, the space shook, and the demonic aura was like thick ink floating in the void. It was deep and dark, and it made people tremble. The jet-black space was accompanied by the demonic aura, and it was about to engulf the phantoms and the stone platform. Chi-la. The sword light and the palm collided, and a piercing sound was heard. Then, layers of energy ripples spread out, obliterating everything. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the sword light and the black palm dissipated at the same time. So powerful! Du Xiaofu was shocked. The great demon emperor was so powerful that even the moon saint would be wounded by a single strike. But now, the phantoms had blocked the great demon emperor with a single sword strike, and they couldn't cross the arch bridge. Humph! As the sword light and the palm print dissipated, the great demon emperor's expression changed, and he snorted. His expression was still cold and arrogant, as if he was looking down on everything. His figure continued to dive down, and he waved his fists. The demonic aura poured out, and it was like a black meteorite falling from the sky. The phantoms got up, and they flew out from the lotus stone platform. The sword light in their hands spread out again, as if tens of thousands of swords were flying at the same time. In the end, they converged into a single point, and it blocked the great demon emperor's fist accurately. Chi-la. That part of the void was in complete chaos, and the crowd could only see specks of light rain. The space collapsed, and it was as if time and space were in chaos. Even the powerhouses of the Saint Plane couldn't see clearly. Dang ding. Then from the void ahead, a figure staggered out from the huge black shadow of demonic aura. The figure was very small, like the figure of a child. His body was wrapped in strange black scales, and he was filled with demonic aura. It was a dwarf man. His face was gloomy, and his black hair reached his shoulders. His legs were very short, but his arms were very long, reaching below his knees. His hands were dark, and strangely he had 12 sharp fingers, like ghost claws. This kind of body made people feel a chill for no reason. Some of the female creatures around the square couldn't help but gasp. "That guy is so ugly," little Xingxing said, looking at the great demon emperor's body. His little mouth twitched, and he snorted disdainfully. "He is a little ugly," Jiangchen said, looking at the great demon emperor's body, and agreed with little Xingxing's words. Hearing this, many people looked at Jiangchen. Even Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Jiangchen helplessly. This guy's golden growler's body was probably even more ugly than the great demon emperor's body. That phantoms is not simple. They are very strange. Jialo Badian, Moon Saint, Xian Gu, Saint Feng Qi, and other experts were all paying attention to the strange phantoms and the great demon emperor. That phantoms could force the great demon emperor back. They were too strong, and the other saints were afraid. In the void ahead, the great demon emperor's face was gloomy. He didn't speak, and demonic aura surged around him like black ink. He raised his hand, and strange talisman runes appeared in his palm. They also carried demonic aura, and they swept toward the phantoms. Demonic aura drifted, turning into a vision, and black light was deep and resplendent. The phantoms raised their hands, and sword light streaked across the sky. The sword light condensed, and the sword shadow was like a blooming flower. It seemed to cut through time and space. Under the light screen behind it, which was filled with a divine aura, it was like a god was attacking. Chi 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 chi, the great demon emperor and the phantoms collided in an instant. The void there was already chaos, and time and space were distorted. In the eyes of ordinary creatures, there was only a rain of light shining there. Only the stronger a cultivator was, the more they could feel how terrifying it was. Du Xiaofu felt terrified. The great demon emperor was too strong. He had activated many terrifying means in an instant. The abyss light screen sealed the void around it. Otherwise, the entire square would have been affected. Watching the battle from afar, Du Xiaofu realized that there were strong and weak Sage Realm experts. This was something that Du Xiaofu had already discovered. However, judging from the strength displayed by the great demon emperor and the phantoms, it seemed that there was a huge gap between the saints. Qin Yanlong, Long Chen Chao, and the others were all saints. They could destroy mountains and rivers and move mountains and drain seas. However, they were inferior in front of Moon Saint, and Moon Saint was also much weaker than the great demon emperor. Saint Realm, Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. He secretly clenched his fists in his long sleeves. He hadn't even set foot in the Saint Realm. He was too weak. Everything below the Saint Realm was insignificant. Woo! The sound of ghosts crying and gods howling made people's hair stand on end. The great demon emperor's body was once again shrouded in a black sun-like demonic aura. The dreadful demonic aura shattered the void and covered the sky. It then transformed into a dreadful vortex. Chapter 2110. The demonic chi vortex was like a black hole in the void. It was a terrifying and peerless technique that swallowed the illusory sword light. This technique was too terrifying. Even Saint Feng Qi and the other Saint Realm cultivators felt a sense of trepidation. The other creatures were as silent as cicadas in winter, their bodies trembling. Qi! The illusory sword light filled the sky as he raised his hand. The sword light was endless, as if the sword light was connected. It spread across the sky, cutting the firmament, and with endless killing intent, it flooded the demonic Qi black hole. Such a collision made the scene in front of them extremely gorgeous. The demonic Qi and the sword light surged and soared into the sky. The terrifying aura that spread out made everyone's divine soul tremble. No one can stop it, he. The chaotic void was shattering, and the great demonic emperor's figure appeared. The sword light in the illusory sword light's hand had pierced through his shoulder. Black blood flowed out from his body, and many of the strange scales on his body were broken. However, he was fearless. He sneered ferociously and slashed out with his ghostly claw. It tore through the void and landed on the illusory sword light's head, crushing it and turning it into a rain of light. The great demonic emperor has succeeded. Moon Saint's eyes were solemn. Boss has succeeded. The 9th demon emperor, the 8th demon emperor, and the 7th demon emperor smiled. But in an instant, the smile on the 9th demon emperor's face froze, and his eyes were filled with surprise. Whoosh! In front of the light curtain archbridge, as the illusory sword light was crushed by the great demonic emperor, the lotus stone platform suddenly erupted with light again. 2 illusory sword light identical to the previous one appeared again, and 2 murderous auras soared into the sky. When the 2 illusory sword light appeared, Du Xiaofu's brows suddenly twitched, and golden light fluctuated in his eyes. Bastard! The great demonic emperor roared, his hair disheveled. He originally thought that after destroying the first illusory sword light, he could leave on the bridge. Who would have thought that after destroying the first illusory sword light, 2 more identical illusory sword light rushed out? Only the great demonic emperor himself knew that he had used all his strength to destroy the first illusory sword light. Although he had fused his body and Yuan spirit and recovered to his peak, he had only fused them recently. His body and Yuan spirit had been separated for a very long time, so his current peak could not be compared to his true peak state in ancient times. 2 phantoms appeared. Then 2 sword lights besieged the great demon emperor while carrying fierce killing power. The intense chaotic battle instantly erupted once again. The void was in complete chaos, and it was difficult to see anything. It's so familiar. Don't you feel like it's exactly the same as that place back then? It's so similar. Heavenly Wolf Lonely Sky Howl arrived beside Du Xiaofu. He did not look at the chaotic space in front of him. Instead, he looked at the 12 figures sitting cross-legged on the remaining 12 lotus platforms. Everything there felt familiar to Mo Tianxiao. He had personally fought many battles there before. It's indeed very similar. It's from the same source. Du Xiaofu nodded. Originally, he had felt a sense of familiarity. Only when the great demonic emperor destroyed one of the phantoms and 2 identical phantoms appeared did he feel even more suspicious. Rumble rumble. As Du Xiaofu's voice faded, the chaotic space in front of them started to tremble. The void was collapsing. The energy waves were like meteorites exploding. A large area of space was destroyed and turned into a vacuum. Walala, broken runes, energy ripples, and demonic chi spread out in all directions. After reaching a certain distance, they strangely disappeared in the void. Pucci, in the shattered void, sword lights broke out. Black blood splashed high up in the air. The great demonic emperor's body staggered back. At this moment, the great demonic emperor was spurting blood from the corner of his mouth. The strange black scales on his body had many cracks. His hair was disheveled, and his body was dripping with blood. There were many bloody holes on his body. The great demonic emperor rapidly retreated from the void. 2 phantoms appeared in midair in front of him. They looked at the great demonic emperor retreating, but did not chase after him. Then, the 2 phantoms descended from midair. When the 2 phantoms landed on the ancient lotus platform, the 2 phantoms had already merged into one. They continued to sit cross-legged with their eyes closed and hugging their swords. The surroundings calmed down. The abyssal light screen was gorgeous. The arched bridge shone, and the ancient runes fluctuated. It was like a fairyland. It was as if nothing had happened. The great demonic emperor retreated to the front of the devil religion's formation. His face was gloomy. He was battered and exhausted. He was covered in blood. He looked at the strange phantoms, but did not dare to go forward. What a strange place. Those energy phantoms are too strong. Meng Qianhe, Taoist Qing Feng, Hu Xuanhu, and the other sage realm experts looked solemn. Even the great demonic emperor of the devil religion could not break through those phantoms. Who would dare to go forward? The whole square was silent. Everyone had seen with their own eyes that the devil religion's sage realm expert was no match for them. Who would dare to go forward? Rock Emperor, the front is too similar. Could it be related to that place? Thunderhawk King and Miameng King also squeezed to Du Xiaofu's side. They felt more and more familiar. There was a kind of urgency in their eyes. Xiaofu, did you find anything? Jalobatian asked Du Xiaofu. Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and the others looked at Du Xiaofu. They had been watching the battle between the great demonic emperor and the phantoms, but the conversation between Du Xiaofu and Mo Tianxiao could not escape their ears. I'm not sure yet. Du Xiaofu looked at the 13 lotus stone platforms in front of the abyss. He had already made up his mind. He raised his eyebrows and said, "But I want to try." "No, that is not a good place." Jalobatian shook his head. That phantoms were too strange. He did not dare to go forward. "Don't take the risk. Third brother, don't be reckless." Du Tingxian and Du Xiaoman said at the same time. That energy phantoms were too strong. They did not dare to let Du Xiaofu go. "I'll go with you. Dad, I'll go with you." Although Du Xiaoyao and Little Xingxing were worried, they believed that Du Xiaofu was confident and would not act rashly. Dongli Qingqing, Ouyang Shuang, Qi Yeshi, and the others were worried, but they did not say anything. "I'll go alone. It won't be a big problem." Du Xiaofu smiled at the crowd. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure leaped out and crossed the square. Demon King Du Xiaofu, what is he doing? In the silent square, everyone was surprised. Just now, even a Saint Realm expert of the devil religion had been defeated. Did that demon king Du Xiaofu have the confidence to be stronger than the Saint Realm expert of the devil religion? Whoosh whoosh, everyone's eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. Moksha, Jialo Juexiao, Mo Lingzi, Violet Lotus Fairy, Hongyue, Xiang Wushuang, and the others were all surprised and puzzled. Du Xiaofu's figure approached cautiously, not daring to be careless. Boom! When Du Xiaofu's figure approached the nearest stone platform, as expected, the light curtain above the vast abyss surged, and runes erupted. The shadow that was sitting cross-legged woke up in an instant. His eyes opened, and his figure shot out into the void. When the illusory figure stepped into the void, it instantly split into 3 figures. The 3 figures were in the sky, shining with dazzling light. They waved their swords and pointed at Du Xiaofu. What's going on? Why are there 3 of them? This change caused everyone to be astonished. Just now, the Saint Realm expert of the devil religion was only facing 2 identical shadows at the same time. He had to kill one shadow before the other 2 appeared. However, as soon as the demon king Du Xiaofu approached, 3 of them appeared in an instant. It's true. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu was faced with 3 identical figures. Although he was stunned for a moment, a smile appeared on his face after that. It was because Du Xiaofu had sensed the auras of the 3 shadows. They hadn't set foot into the Sage Realm. However, their auras weren't any weaker than the Semi-Sage Realm. They were the strongest experts below the Sage Realm. Although the 3 shadows did not have the mark of a divine ring, they could not escape Du Xiaofu's prying. Their aura made Du Xiaofu feel the aura of a supreme Nirvana Realm expert. The aura of the 3 energy shadows was at the peak of the Nirvana Realm. Although Du Xiaofu didn't know why 3 energy silhouettes appeared as soon as he entered the arena, this made him even more certain of one thing. This place was similar to the strange place where he, Skywolf, Lonely Sky Howl, Thunderhawk King, and King Miameng were trapped after he missed the Sovereign's tomb in God's domain. At that time, in the strange place in the divine domain, there was an identical light screen. The opponents of the shadows that appeared were related to their strength and cultivation. The stronger one's cultivation was, the stronger the opponent would be. However, this was limited to the same level as one's cultivation. The opponents of the shadows that appeared would only be at the peak of the cultivation level, but they had the strength closest to the next realm. At this moment, feeling the aura of the 3 shadows, Du Xiaofu was basically certain that everything in this strange place was the same as the strange place in the divine domain. After all, these 2 places were left behind by the master of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god, so it was even more reasonable. At that time, in that strange place, the opponents of the shadows were a test. Only by defeating the strongest existence in the same realm, or even defeating oneself in the end, and confirming that one was invincible in the same realm, could one pass the test. In the strange place in the divine domain, Du Xiaofu finally broke free from the Nirvana realm after defeating himself. In those duels, 1 against 9, he finally defeated himself. Every time he broke through the limit and defeated one opponent after another, they were all tempering, stepping stones to a stronger level. Du Xiaofu still remembered clearly. At that time, every time he defeated the opponents of the shadows, he would obtain benefits in the end. He would be baptized and nourished by a kind of pure light rain energy, and his cultivation and strength would improve by a step. At this moment, with these 3 shadows blocking him, Du Xiaofu did not know what the 3,000 sectors' intention was. However, Du Xiaofu reckoned that if someone wanted to break through the abyss and ascend the ancient archbridge, they would have to defeat these energy shadows. Fight! Fight! When the 3 energy shadows appeared, Du Xiaofu did not show any fear. On the contrary, his fighting spirit was greatly aroused. At that time, he was not afraid when he fought against 9, let alone now when there were only 3. Chapter 21:11. Du Xiaofu took a step forward to verify his guess and test his current cultivation. What is this guy trying to do? Seeing that Du Xiaofu seemed to be advancing instead of retreating, and his fighting spirit was greatly aroused, everyone exclaimed in surprise and focused their attention on him. Chi Chi Chi! The mysterious runes on the void shone brilliantly as the 3 figures brandished their swords. The sword light shattered the void and froze everything. Any single one of these strands of sword light was probably sufficient to kill an expert at the peak of the Overlord realm. Boom! The golden wings of the great rock behind Du Xiaofu spread out as he condensed his hand seals, transforming into the illusory shadows of the dark seeker grass and the undying grass. Purple flames surged as runes bloomed resplendently, blocking the three sword lights. Du Xiaofu wanted to activate the purple-gold heavenly tower and fight sword against sword, but he realized that it was the same as when he was in that strange place. He could use all kinds of methods and profound meanings, but he could not use external forces. The purple-gold heavenly tower and the divine thunder cauldron were suppressed in the heavenly tower and could not move. Some experts were surprised. These three figures were exactly the same as the one that dealt with the Saint Realm expert from the Devil religion. Although their strength was also terrifying, they were clearly much weaker than the one that the great demon from the Devil religion faced. Jialo Badian, Moon Sage, Xian Gu, and the other experts also noticed this change and were puzzled. As expected, Mo Tianxiao, Mia Meng, and Thunderhawk King looked at each other and smiled. Only they knew the reason. Do you know the reason? Jialo Badian asked Mo Tianxiao, Thunderhawk King, and Mia Meng. Judging from the expressions on their faces, they probably knew something. Senior, I can't be sure for now. Let me go and verify it. Mo Tianxiao bowed. As soon as he finished speaking, he tapped the ground and a green light erupted from his feet as he soared into the sky. Wait for me. Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng gritted their teeth and spoke in unison as they soared into the sky. It's the desolate nation's guardian envoy, Heavenly Wolf Gu Tianxiao. There seems to be Mia Meng King and Thunderhawk King as well. The square was in an uproar. Someone recognized the identities of Mo Tianxiao, Mia Meng Wang, and Thunderhawk King, and exclaimed in surprise. Could it be that these three fellows also wanted to pass through the arch bridge? Boom! Celestial Wolf Lonely Sky Howl, Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng King approached the three stone platforms. From the distant stone platforms, three waves of killing intent swept out. Three sword rays pierced through the air and slashed towards the three people. Mo Tianxiao, Thunderhawk King, and Mia Meng King all had smiles in their eyes. Everything was just as they had expected. This place was exactly the same as the mystical place back then. The strength of the illusory figures that appeared was the same as their cultivation. Fight! Mo Tianxiao, Thunderhawk King, and Mia Meng King shouted loudly. Their battle intent surged as they directly fought. What happened? Such a scene made the living beings around the square even more surprised. Why was Mo Tianxiao and the other two different from the one Du Xiaofu encountered? It was just an illusory figure, and the strength of the illusory figure was obviously much weaker. In the void above, the battle was intense. Gee! Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng King did not exchange many blows before they directly used their real bodies. Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng King were two of the three great monster kings in the divine domain. They were even stronger than Mirage Dragon King. If Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng King had not suffered a backlash when they tried to forcefully break through to the Nirvana realm in the divine domain, Mirage Dragon King would not have been able to claim to be the strongest in the divine domain. In these years in the desolate country, Thunderhawk King and Mirage Dragon King's reputation had been suppressed because of Mo Tianxiao and the others. However, their strength was definitely extraordinary. They had also broken through to the Nirvana realm in the divine domain and were now reincarnated. Thunderhawk King and Mia Meng King's improvement could not be compared to freaks like Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing. However, with the support of the desolate country's resources and the endless nourishment from back then, their improvement was already shocking. The battle was earth-shaking. Although it was not as shocking as the battle between the Devil religion's great demon emperor, it was still extremely terrifying. At this moment, the most intense battle was still Du Xiaofu's 1 against 3. The three illusory figures advanced and retreated at the same time. Their coordination was flawless. The strength of the three illusory figures was at the peak of the eternal realm. Sword light intertwined, covering the void and the sky. It was incomparably mighty and fierce. It's not enough. Du Xiaofu shouted. golden light flashed, and the rock's golden wings spread. The rock's chaos-crushing claw crushed out. The rock traveled thousands of miles, and the unfettered footwork swept across the void. Chi-chi-chi-chi, the sword light overflowed into the sky, cutting through the spatial cracks and shattering everything, causing the void to become chaotic and blurry. It's very strong. No one below the Saint Realm can resist it. Many of the sage-to-be experts present were stunned by the scene before them. The joint attack of the three illusory figures was too terrifying. Even the half-sages felt cold and knew that they could not resist it. Fight. Fight. Du Xiaofu was fearless. Back then, he had not been afraid when he fought 1 against 9. Now, there were only 3. Lightning spread out from his body, and the thunder martial vein appeared in the sky. The golden-winged rock could be activated, and it was like a peerless humanoid rock flying across the sky. Rumble! Rumble! Thunder resounded, and lightning overflowed into the sky, killing in all directions. In the terrifying battle, energy surged, and the void was constantly shattered. Walala, energy ripples raged like a flood, and talisman runes swept across the sky like the waves of the ocean. Rumble, half of the sky was boiling, and talisman runes were resplendent. Strange phenomena appeared in the sky, and lightning interweaved. Du Xiaofu's attacks were bold and powerful. He flapped his wings and flew across the sky, causing the living beings in all directions to be secretly frightened. Such a demon king was indeed worthy of being able to sweep across the world, and was invincible among his peers. Be careful! Although Du Xiaofu was very strong, old Granny Jialo Maoyuo, Dongli Qingqing, Ouyang Shuang, and Du Xiaoman were all worried for him at this moment. Fight! Du Xiaofu fought with all his strength. Energy swept out, and only martial arts reigned supreme, causing the void to spread like waves. He flapped his wings, and the thunder martial vein drove the thunder profound to boil, and electric arcs flooded the void. It's over! Not long after, the resplendent sword radiance that covered the sky was destroyed by the lightning, and the 3 energy shadows were shattered by Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu was in the sky, and the golden rock wings on his back had a few marks left by the sword radiance. His hair was a little messy, but that was all. The whole place was shocked, and everyone was dumbfounded. That man, who looked like a rock in human form, was so ferocious. With his own strength, he was able to fight against 3 half-saint-level phantoms without being defeated. Instead, he killed them. No one below the Saint Realm could be his match. Not many people knew that Du Xiaofu had not used his full strength to fight against 3 half-saint-level phantoms. Chapter 2112. Translator. H2H2 Mr. Du Xiaofu's Redbone Horse Monkey Meridian Spirit, 8 Trigrams Diagram, Azure Spirit Armor and other trump cards had yet to be used. In this place where his enemies were everywhere, Du Xiaofu would definitely not be so foolish as to reveal all of his trump cards to the other party. Even if someone knew of his trump cards, he could not let them know of his current true strength. After defeating the 3 illusory figures, Du Xiaofu's figure stared at the vast and resplendent screen of light in front of him, wondering if there would be more illusory figures appearing. The screen of light rippled with runes, but there were no signs of more illusory figures emerging. After the 3 illusory figures destroyed by Du Xiaofu were destroyed, a rain of light rained down, but did not dissipate in the end, landing on the lotus stone platform below. Boom! The moment the rain of light landed on the stone platform rumbled and ancient runes surged as if they were alive. A pillar of light shot out, strangely enveloping Du Xiaofu directly. Within the pillar of light, the rain of light rippled and spiritual light overflowed. A gentle but irresistible suction pulled Du Xiaofu's figure down, landing him on the lotus stone platform. The stone platform rippled and the ancient runes dazzled like a screen of light, enveloping the entire stone platform. The rain of light was like spirited snakes that burrowed directly into Du Xiaofu's body. When the rain of light burrowed into his body, Du Xiaofu's originally somewhat shocked expression was instantly replaced by one of pleasant surprise. Du Xiaofu was all too familiar with this rain of light. Back in that strange place, It would appear once every time he defeated an opponent. This rain of light was like energy. After it burrowed into the body, it could instantly heal the injuries, even the damage to the primordial spirit. Finally, it could nourish the body and primordial spirit. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on the stone platform. The golden rock wings that had some scratches on his back recovered in an instant, shining brightly with golden light. Du Xiaofu did not suffer any other injuries. At this moment, under the cover of the rain of light, his body was sparkling and translucent. This rain of light was like the purest energy, and did not need to be refined at all. It directly drilled into the god's watchtower and turned into the purest profound qi to replenish and recover. Boom! In an instant, Du Xiaofu's aura seemed to be rising faintly. His Xian qi and primordial spirit were both strengthening, shaking the void in all directions like the sound of wind and thunder. He seems to be directly strengthening. What's going on? All the creatures in the plaza were astonished. After the Demon King Du Xiaofu defeated the three phantoms, he seemed to be reaping great benefits. Du Xiaofu's aura was rising slowly. However, Du Xiaofu's aura didn't rise much either. One more step and he would be in the sage realm. Du Xiaofu wasn't lacking in Xian Qi and primordial spirit power, otherwise, he would have broken through long ago. However, under the envelopment of the light, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. His expression was indifferent, without any fluctuations, as though he was an old monk in meditation. Within this rain of light, Du Xiaofu seemed to have obtained other benefits and was currently comprehending them. Rumble! Boom! Miameng King and Thunder Eagle King's enormous bodies soared through the sky. The heavenly sound did not stop as they activated the power of the Nirvana stage. The two illusory figures that were fighting against Miameng King and Thunder Eagle King were also disheveled, as though they were real. Their situation was not much better. Miameng King and Thunder Eagle King had broken through to the Nirvana stage, but it hadn't been long since they broke through. The illusory figures were all at the peak of the Nirvana stage, and could be said to be invincible in the same realm. It was already not easy for Miameng King and Thunder Eagle King to be able to fight to this extent and prevent the illusory figures from gaining any benefits. The two illusory figures that could be said to be invincible in the same realm were also unable to do anything to Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King. Back then, Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King had also improved tremendously and comprehended many things from the light screen opponents in that strange and mysterious place. Retreat! Thunder Eagle King said to Miameng King. His enormous body flapped his wings and retreated. Lightning fluctuated, and he turned into a human form. His body was riddled with wounds and dripping with blood, but his aura was still shocking. Miameng retreated and turned into a human form. His injuries were also very serious. The two illusory figures did not pursue. They returned to the stone platform and continued to sit cross-legged. Heavenly Wolf Mo Tianxiao was still fighting. Amidst the uproar, he had defeated the illusory figure in front of him without even using his true body. This shocked everyone. Chi-chi! However, in an instant, two energy illusory figures rushed out from the stone platform again. The sword light pierced through the sky and slashed toward Mo Tianxiao. Mo Tianxiao's eyes glowed with green light. His battle intent surged and his body expanded. He turned into the Heavenly Wolf's true body and roared as he collided with the illusory figures. Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King's eyes were filled with reluctance and disappointment. However, they retreated to the desolate nation's side and consumed elixirs one after another. That illusory figure is mysterious, but his strength is only at the peak of the same realm as the intruder. If you can defeat him, you should be able to obtain great benefits. If you are not strong enough, then you don't have to go. It is useless to go, and you might die at any time. Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King transmitted their guesses to the Desolate Nation, Inyang School, Phoenix Race, and Golden Winged Great Pring Race without needing Jalobadian and the others to ask. Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King transmitted their voices to prevent others from eavesdropping. As long as one could defeat those illusory figures, there would obviously be benefits. Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King did not intend to tell everyone, but at the same time, they warned that those whose strength had not reached the peak of the same realm should not try. Those illusory figures were merciless and might die. Hearing Thunder Eagle King and Miameng King's words and seeing Du Xiaofu, who seemed to have obtained benefits, and Demo Tianxiao, who was still fighting fiercely, the desolate nation, Yinyang School, Taoist School, Confucian School, and the others' eyes trembled. I see. Moon Saint, Jialo Badian, Xian Gu, and the others were moved, and the doubts in their hearts were resolved. No wonder the great demon encountered the same opponents as Du Xiaofu and Demo Tianxiao, but their strength was different. I want to try. In an instant, figures flew out from the Confucian School, Taoist School, Phoenix Race, Yinyang School, School of Agriculture, and Desolate Nation. They were all young disciples, all supreme talents. They wanted to try, to test themselves, and also to obtain benefits. The Confucian School had Kong Sansi. The Taoist School had Su Yangzi. The School of Agriculture had Zhou Xiaoluo. The School of Mo had Mo Runan. The School of Yinyang had Qi Yishi. The Phoenix Race had Zishuan, Huang Linger, Feng Han, Feng Chu, and others. There was also Dongli Qingqing, Jialo Juiyu, Jialo Kaling, and Jialo Juekong of the golden-winged Great Ping Race. However, at this moment, 3 figures were running at the strongest. They flew towards the 3 arched bridges in front of the vast square. The 3 figures had golden light rippling, golden flames spreading, and electric arcs flowing. They were Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao. Boom! The vast abyss surged, the light screen shone brightly, and the square rumbled. As Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao approached, the 3 phantoms rushed out with fierce killing intent, and sword light broke through the sky. Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, and Little Xingxing had already known the secret, so they were fearless, and the 3 of them attacked together. Du Tingxian attacked, and bright lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Du Xiaoyao attacked, and golden light burst out, suppressing all directions. Little Xingxing attacked, and golden flames spewed out. Purple flames surged, and starlight flowed. An intense battle was about to break out. Dongli Qingqing, Jialo Juiyu, Huang Linger, Dongli Ruoshu, Zhou Xiaoluo, Jialo Kaling, Dongfang Qingmu, and Nether Demon followed behind and rushed towards the remaining 8 arched bridges. The 8 of them arrived and occupied the remaining 8 arched bridge entrances. Following closely behind were Qi Yeshi, Lian Qingrong, Mo Runan, Kong Sansi, and Feng Han, these young supreme beings. But they were a little slower, and Dongli Qingqing and the others were the first to arrive. Rumble! The light screen of the abyss was destroyed, and the 8 phantoms rushed out with 8 unparalleled killing intent, engulfing Dongli Qingqing and the others. Bang! 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 Such a battle ignited the whole square in an instant. The abyss was boiling, and the void was constantly exploding. After a large area of the void turned into a vacuum, it was restored again. A group of young supreme talents attacked, and even Lian Qingrong, the descendant of the great snow mountain, Mo Runan, and the other supreme talents had to retreat regretfully. What the hell is going on? All the creatures in the square were shocked, and they looked at each other in dismay. No one knew what had happened, and why there were so many supreme talents rushing out from the desolate country's lineup. What was even more shocking was that those supreme talents were actually able to deal with those energy phantoms. That is a great danger, and also a test. How far can they reach in the same realm? The result will be seen at this moment. Xian Gu's voice was filled with vicissitudes as he looked at the group of supreme talents fighting intensely. Only those who are invincible in the same realm can pass this test. It's very difficult. Moon Saint's eyes fluctuated with starlight, and his voice was gentle as he sighed. Rumble! The intense battle enveloped the sky. In a short moment, some people were injured, and blood spurted out, but the battle continued. Jialo Juiyu, Jialo Kaling, Dongfang Qingmu, Nether Demon, and the others had even used their true bodies. In the abyss ahead, the void was stirred into chaos, and the void was collapsing inch by inch. The mysterious runes on the talismans were resplendent, and a tide of energy swept through the sky. sword light filled the sky, and all kinds of beast energy surged, and their roars were like thunder. Enormous beast bodies covered the sky, and the divine halos were resplendent, and supreme power pervaded the air. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled everywhere, and a pitch-black space hung in the sky. Such a scene shocked all the creatures in the square, and it made them shudder with fear. Oh my God! Many creatures were flabbergasted. A group of the strongest supreme talents in the world were attacking at the same time, and the outside world would definitely not see it a second time. Zhou Xiaoluo and Jialo Keiling's enormous true bodies coughed up blood at the same time, and their bodies were dripping with blood. They had defeated the first energy phantoms, but they had also paid a huge price. Four energy phantoms appeared again, and at the same time, sword light swept toward Zhou Xiaoluo and Jialo Keiling. Chapter 21:13. Jialo Keiling's golden-winged rock body shone with boundless golden light. A divine ring appeared above Zhou Xiaoluo's head, and her supreme power swept out. Every move she made could overturn rivers and seas. It was hard to imagine how such a terrifying power could be contained in her beautiful body. However, it didn't take long before Zhou Xiaoluo and Jialo Keiling couldn't hold on any longer. After severely injuring the energy shadows, Zhou Xiaoluo and Jialo Keiling couldn't hold on any longer. They could only clench their teeth and retreat regretfully. Fight! As Jialo Keiling and Zhou Xiaoluo retreated, Lian Qingrong and Mo Runan didn't retreat too far away. They wanted to test themselves and obtain the opportunity. This is a test. There are still many shortcomings. Zhou Xiaoluo sighed. On her beautiful face, there was a lot of regret on her originally deathly pale face. She looked delicate and pitiful, causing others to feel love for her. However, her noble temperament made ordinary people not dare to approach her, as they were intimidated by her. There are still many flaws. I haven't reached the peak. Jialo Keiling felt regretful. This battle was a test for herself. It made her realize that she had many flaws. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been defeated like this. Whether it was Zhou Xiaoluo or Jialo Keiling, any one of them was already the most outstanding existence among their peers. Moreover, they had already defeated one energy phantom. Even when facing two energy phantoms, they had persisted until the end before being defeated. With such a battle record, how many Supreme Heaven's favorites in the world could be compared to them? However, these two girls were somewhat unwilling and regretful. Their target wasn't the general public, and they weren't ordinary geniuses either. They were very clear that there were monstrous existences in the current world, such as the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and Du Xiaoyao. Those were their targets. The void in front of them was in chaos. Energy was erupting, and talisman patterns were glaring. Rumble. After a while, there was an explosion. Waves of vast and terrifying energy suddenly came from all directions, bringing along a huge pressure of heaven and earth. It caused the heaven and earth space to tremble. It shook people's souls. An undying tree covered the sky. It had luxuriant branches and lush leaves, and it towered 300 meters in the sky. Every single green leaf was suffused with talisman markings, and strange scenes appeared in the sky and the surroundings. It formed a spatial storm, and 6 divine rings enveloped it, shaking the sky. The undying wood was Dongfang Qingmu's true body. Its aura was full of vitality, as if the source of life was surging. The undying wood was even more terrifying than the undying grass. Moreover, this was the undying wood that had reached the nirvana stage. Some of the Saint Realm experts looked at Dongfang Qingmu's body with greed in their eyes. A vast river stretched across the sky. The water of the river was strange like ink, and the chi of the underworld seemed to overflow from the 9 hells. Just the aura that emanated from this terrifying and strange nether river was enough to make one's soul tremble and soul tremble. This was the Black Nether Hell River, the true body of the Nether Demon. Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon were already fighting against the third shadow. They were already fighting with all their might. Swish, swish. The countless green leaves of the undying tree glowed and turned into sharp green swords that pierced through the void. Sizzle. The black nether hell river glowed with strange black runes. A huge body was formed by the black river water and runes. Its eyes seemed to contain the 9 hells world. There were shadows of gods and demons in the sky, and huge waves of the nether river surged into the sky. But this was already the limit. Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon had used all their techniques, but they couldn't hold on any longer. The sword light enveloped them and cut through their true bodies. Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon fled pathetically. If they didn't have their own techniques, they would have paid for their stubbornness and unwillingness. They would have been killed by the Shadow's sword. Dongfang Qingmu and Nether Demon reverted to their true bodies. They spat out blood and retreated, looking miserable. Almost at the same time, Dongli Ruoshu was knocked back. Her body was covered in blood, and her face was pale. She couldn't fight anymore. However, Dongli Qingqing and Dongfang Qingmu's bodies were filled with vitality. Their injuries were obviously recovering. Compared to Nether Demon, their injuries were recovering much faster. They aren't enough. Seeing that even experts like Zhou Xiaoluo, Jialo Kaling, Dongfang Qingmu, Nether Demon, and Dongli Ruoshu couldn't break through, Moon Saint, Jialo Badian, Xian Gu, and Taoist Qing Feng couldn't help but sigh. But someone succeeded. Heavenly Wolf Lonely Sky Howl. The huge heavenly wolf raised its head and howled at the moon. Its supreme power erupted. His body was covered in blood, and one could see the white bones. It was a tragic sight. His body was almost torn apart by the sword light. But in the end, Lonely Sky Howl succeeded. Following closely behind Du Xiaofu, Heavenly Wolf Lonely Sky Howl defeated 3 opponents with illusory energy. When there were no more energy shadows, the ancient lotus stone platform glowed. Lonely Sky Howl landed on the stone platform and sat down cross-legged. The mysterious light rain shrouded him, and his severely injured body was recovering quickly. Heavenly Wolf Lonely Sky Howl. This scene shocked everyone. Heavenly Wolf Lonely Sky Howl's name shook the world at this moment. Dongli Ruoshu, Dongfang Qingmu, and Nether Demon were no match for him. Qi Yeshi, Feng Han, and Kong Sansi filled in immediately. An intense battle was about to break out. I understand now. The energy shadows will only use the same cultivation level as the intruder, but their combat power is at the peak of the same cultivation level. If they defeat 3 energy opponents at the same time, they will be able to obtain benefits. In the crowd, one after another, an expert saw the clues. Is it really like that? It seems like it. The strength of each energy opponent is different, but they won't exceed the intruder's cultivation level. When this news spread, the crowd was in an uproar. In an instant, all the creatures in the square knew. I want to give it a try. I want to give it a try too. In that instant, many young Heavenly Pride Supreme beings rushed out. They all wanted to test themselves, obtain benefits. Even many old people in the square were eager to give it a try. However, no one dared to get close. No one dared to touch Kong Sansi, Qi Yeshi, Lian Qingrong, and the others who were fighting inside the light screen. These people were all related to the desolate country. The existence behind them was enough to intimidate any party. The dragon's roar was like thunder, making all the demonic beasts present tremble and want to worship it. A golden dragon was in the sky, and a terrible pressure made even the demonic beasts in the Saint Realm tremble. They were affected by the huge pressure. This was Little Xingxing's original body. It flapped its wings across the void. Starlight fluctuated, and red flames burned. With a thunderous force, it shattered the sword radiance in the sky and destroyed the 3 energy shadows. The huge redbone horseape was in the sky, and the supreme power was surging. Its fist shook the sky and pushed in all directions. It followed closely behind Little Xingxing and defeated the 3 energy shadows. Rumble. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Du Tingshuan's body fluctuated with lightning. The thunder martial vein was in the sky, and the supreme power was erupting. Du Tingxian spat out a mouthful of blood. His clothes were torn, and his white bones and flesh were exposed after being swept by the sword radiance. One could almost see his internal organs. Du Tingshuan's hair was cut by the sword radiance, and the sword radiance almost cut his neck. This kind of injury was a ghastly sight. Du Xiaojing watched from afar. Her clear eyes were trembling secretly, and her delicate hands were clenched tightly. But in the end, the 3 energy shadows were destroyed by Du Tingxian, and the 3 sword radiances pierced through Du Dingshuan's body. Du Tingxian persevered and was covered in blood. He looked ferocious, and his body was swaying in the void. Like father, like son, they are equally fierce. Some people were secretly shocked. Sure enough, like son, like father. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and Du Tingxian had turned into human form, and the 3 figures landed on the 3 stone platforms respectively. They were enveloped by the light. Under the rain of light, Du Dingshuan's shocking injuries were recovering rapidly. Huang Ling-er's huge phoenix body flapped its wings in the sky. Flames covered the sky, and the scorching heat burned the void. She was fighting the 3 energy shadows. Jialo Jueyu's golden-winged rock body covered the sky and the sun. The supreme power swept across the sky, and he fought the 3 energy shadows with all his might. Compared to Huang Ling-er and Jialo Jueyu's physical advantage, Dongli Qingqing couldn't use her mid-grade saint artifact, the Taiqing demon subduing bow. It was already difficult for her to fight the 3 energy shadows. At this moment, it was even more strenuous and dangerous. However, Dongli Qingqing had the mysterious martial vein in her body, and it was playing a huge role at this moment. It could recover quickly, and at the same time, it filled the air with a terrifying ancient pressure, allowing her to persevere. But Feng Han, Mo Runan, and Kong Sansi couldn't persevere any longer. They were slightly weaker than Zhou Xiaoluo and Jialo Kaling, and they were defeated. Lian Qingrong and Qi Yeshi gave it their all. Ice covered the sky, and snow covered the sky. A river of stars appeared, and the stars rotated. But in the end, Lian Qingrong and Qi Yeshi were defeated. They were defeated by 3 energy shadows at the same time, and they left regretfully. Charge. As Feng Han, Mo Runan, Kong Sansi, and the others retreated regretfully, the crowd was in an uproar. The young supreme talents from all sides rushed out, and there were many elders and beast race experts of the older generation among them. Charge. They didn't want to give way anymore. Looking at the Demon King and Du Xiaofu's appearance, Mo Tianxiao and Du Dingshuan's blood-stained bodies were mysteriously recovering in an instant. It must be a huge benefit, and they wanted to seize it. There were too many people, and there were only a few empty arched bridges. Many people squeezed toward the same arched bridge. Their auras were overflowing. Many experts were astonishing, and many of them were extraordinary. Boom, the abyss was surging, and the light screen was resplendent. The energy shadows that had just returned to sitting cross-legged on the stone platform rushed out again. Chi. These energy shadows appeared in the air, and they turned into many identical figures. Streaks of sword light were like thousands of arrows, breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, the void was in chaos. Miserable cries rang out, and many bodies were directly cut into pieces. Some even had their primordial spirits shattered. Some creatures had their arms cut off, and a mist of blood poured out. Some beast race experts' bodies were cut open, and blood flowed out like a fountain. The number of energy shadows was directly proportional to the number of creatures that approached. The cultivation bases of the nearby living beings varied, but the powers of these energy silhouettes were exactly the same. They were all based on the highest cultivation base of the nearby living beings. Under these conditions, how could those creatures with lower cultivation levels be a match for them? Those who were seriously injured were already lucky. Some supreme geniuses relied on their trump cards and life-saving methods to escape by a fluke. Retreat, quickly retreat. It was utter chaos. Amidst the miserable cries, the tide of people that had just rushed out immediately retreated, but they had already suffered heavy losses. Quickly retreat. Many elders from various factions cried out. Their sects and clans had extraordinary disciples that had been killed or seriously injured. They were so distressed that they couldn't speak, and they almost vomited blood. Some of the more powerful supreme talents were still persevering. A woman with a bewitching appearance and a seductive figure in a green dress instantly turned into an 8-winged green crystal python. Her aura was terrifying, and a divine ring appeared in the sky. A young man with an outstanding temperament, his eyes faintly suffused with golden runes, turned into the true body of a Taigu gold-devouring rat. A young man in fiery armor quietly appeared, and the world suddenly became scorching hot, making it difficult for creatures to approach. He was the fire cloud evil god, Dugafenshin. A young man in a dark red robe shot out a sharp gaze from his deep, dark eyes. Baleful aura surged around him. He was the heavenly fiend, Yeluhan. An 8-winged green crystal python, a Taigu gold-devouring rat, the fire cloud evil god, Dugafenshin, and the heavenly fiend, Yeluhan. These 4 people each occupied an arch bridge, confronting the energy phantoms, making other creatures not dare to approach. Within the devil religion, the great demonic emperor had already seen through everything. His gaze was gloomy, angry, and regretful. He said to Moksha, Jialo Jueju, and Emolingzi, "There is an opportunity here. You can give it a try. It can also be considered a test." Whoosh whoosh whoosh, but as the great demonic emperor's voice faded, Moksha, Jialo Jueju, and Emolingzi's figures had already disappeared. "Shao Jing, that is an opportunity. You can seize it." In a corner of the square, Qin Yanlong's expression was already unsightly. At this moment, seeing Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, and many of the desolate nation's supreme experts seemed to have obtained great benefits, the expression on his old face became even more unsightly. Du Xiaojing nodded. Her beautiful figure swept across the sky in an alluring arc. Su Sanyan, Shiyu, and the others watched from afar. Their expressions were uncertain. There were no longer any juniors around them who could compete. They had all been wiped out. They themselves did not have the intention to go up personally. They seemed to have some misgivings and apprehensions. "You guys are not enough." When Emolingzi's figure appeared again, he had already crossed the vast square and arrived in front of an arch bridge where several supreme experts and elders were still fighting. Emolingzi did not care about the crowd. His figure was tall and straight, and his voice was calm and indifferent. He stepped forward, accompanied by a terrifying purple lightning that swept out from his body, covering his martial vein. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. This was the Du family's lightning martial vein. Its aura was murderous and vast. In an instant, the surroundings were filled with lightning. Heaven and earth shook, and many people were shaken away, screaming and wailing. Chapter 21:14. The energy phantoms in the air fused together, and their strength soared. Sword light filled the sky as they engaged in a fierce battle with Emolingzi. 8-winged azure crystal python, you can barely be my mount. How about it? Emosha's figure appeared beside the 8-winged cyan crystal python. He looked at the 8-winged cyan crystal python and sized it up. His voice was calm and carried a kind of natural arrogance. "Moksha." The 8-winged azure crystal python was already at its limit. When it saw Moksha, its expression changed and it instinctively retreated. "Chi." As Moksha approached, the energy phantoms that were fighting against the 8-winged azure crystal pythons suddenly soared. Their killing intent soared into the sky, and sword light engulfed the area. "Come!" Moksha shouted fearlessly. Devil chi gushed out, and lightning filled the sky. He ignored the 8-winged azure crystal python. The gigantic 8-winged azure crystal python retreated, watching the battle between Moksha and the energy phantoms. Its eyes were filled with unwillingness, shock, and anger. It was very complicated, but it was powerless and didn't dare to interfere. It could only retreat. Jialo Jueme appeared not far from Yeluhan. He was sizing up the energy phantoms that were fighting against Yeluhan. His voice drifted out as though he was saying to Yeluhan, "There's nothing left for you to do. You're not enough. Retreat." Yeluhan's battle intent soared. Someone was interfering, and they didn't even put him in their eyes. Baleful chi surged in the depths of his eyes. Yeluhan had seen Jialo Jueme before, and he also recognized him. But he was Yeluhan, a paragon. He had his pride and arrogance. Back then, even though he knew he wasn't strong enough, he didn't shrink back when facing the legalism of Han Quebec. Let alone now, he was facing Jialo Jueme who didn't put him in their eyes. Boom! Yelu Han's sharp eyes opened and closed, his eyes seemed to contain 2 seas of blood. Terrifying light flashed as he directly attacked. The boundless baleful chi around him shone brightly. His baleful chi soared up into the sky, accompanied by the faint sounds of ghosts crying and gods wailing. It transformed into a claw imprint in the air, tearing apart space as it shot towards Jialo Jumi. Jialo Jumi stood there quietly. Facing the heavenly fiend Yelu Han's attack, he didn't even raise his head. His long black sleeves suddenly swept to the side, and a monstrous wave of black and gold talisman runes swept out as if it wanted to destroy the world. Boom! There seemed to be a black demonic rock soaring out from within the black gold talisman symbols. Everywhere it passed, it would create an abyss-like vacuum in space. Black light that caused one's heart to palpitate gushed out and suddenly collided with it. Rumble! When the two collided, a muffled sound rang out, and a large expanse of space collapsed. The inscriptions on the black and gold talisman were tyrannical and sharp. With an incomparably domineering aura, it shattered the baleful chi and shattered Yelu Han's claw imprint. A terrifying force sent Yelu Han flying. After 100 feet, Yelu Han stomped on the air and stabilized his body. He spat out a mouthful of blood that dyed his robe red. His eyes were filled with shock. Jialo Julike had easily injured heavenly fiend Yelu Han, as if he had just raised his hand. Even after injuring Yelu Han, Jialo Jumi still didn't show the slightest bit of emotion. It was as if he already knew what was going on. His black and gold eyes stared at the stone bridge closest to him. There, a golden-winged great prung radiated boundless golden light like a rising sun. It was currently fighting fiercely against 3 energy phantoms. Looking at the golden-winged great prung in the sky, Jialo Jumi's black gold eyes wavered. Swish, a sword light pierced through the air and swept towards Jialo Jueme's back. It was the energy phantoms that had originally blocked Yelu Han, but now their strength had increased explosively. Fight! Jialo Jumi snorted. His black hair and black robes fluttered in the wind. As he turned around, he bent his 5 fingers and a claw mark distorted the void. It hung in the void with 5 long pitch-black cracks and grabbed at the sword light in an instant. Within the claw imprint, demonic chi raged. Its aura was incomparably domineering, like a black demonic rock that wanted to soar into the sky and shatter the dome of heaven to block the sword light. Don't waste time. This isn't something you can break through. Withdraw. With a flash of lightning, someone crossed the void and appeared next to the injured Taigu gold devouring rats. This figure was hazy, his hair fluttering in the wind. Dazzling arcs of electricity pulsed from his body. His temperament was extraordinary, and he wore a battle robe that made him seem extraordinary. Xiang Wushuang. When this figure appeared, the Taigu gold devouring rat's expression changed. How could it not know Xiang Wushuang's strength? Although he had been defeated by Du Xiaofu not long ago, his terrifying strength was too frightening. He was still an invincible existence under the Saint Realm. Boom! As Xiang Wushuang approached, the energy phantom that had been fighting the Taigu gold devouring rat was clearly injured. However, its aura instantly soared and it recovered to its original state. Sword light filled the sky, capable of cutting through everything. The Taigu gold devouring rat retreated in anger. It was not afraid of ordinary people, but Xiang Wushuang was different. It really did not dare to provoke him. Moreover, the energy phantom had been greatly affected by Xiang Wushuang, and its strength had increased greatly. The Taigu gold devouring rat could only retreat. Fight! Lightning flashed in Xiang Wushuang's eyes as his battle intent burned. Immediately, he engaged the energy phantom in a fierce battle. Du Xiaojing's figure appeared not far away, but he had no intention of interfering. Du Xiaojing stood calmly as he watched the battle on the bridge. He was as transcendent as an immortal, transcending the world for no reason. Just like Du Xiaojing, There was also a beautiful and elegant woman who had appeared out of nowhere and was waiting calmly. She wore a purple pleated skirt embroidered with several blooming lotus flowers that emitted a hazy light and a sweet fragrance. She was the Violet Lotus Fairy. Her skin was delicate as she looked at the void in front of her with her beautiful eyes. She had no intention of interfering. On the other hand, Rainbow Moon was standing in the plaza. She had no intention of interfering. Her exquisite curves undulated as she watched the intense battle. She casually played with a few strands of her dreamy purple hair on her shoulder. Before long, the fire cloud evil god Dugufenshin was defeated. His body was riddled with wounds. Several sword lights had left wounds so deep that his bones could be seen. Dugufenshin was unwilling to retreat. His aura was weak and his face was deathly pale. The three energy phantoms that were fighting with the fire cloud evil god earlier were also in a very sorry state. They looked at Dugufenshin, who had already retreated, and did not pursue him. They directly retreated and turned into phantoms as they continued to sit cross-legged on the stone platform. After Dugufenshin's defeat, an empty bridge was left. No one dared to barge in. Although there were people in the distance who were eager to give it a try, they understood that if they were not strong enough, they would only be courting death. Chapter 21:15. The blood of my legalism flows in her veins. Her mother is a member of my legalism, and she is a disciple of my legalism, Qin Yunlong said in a deep voice. His tone was firm, and carried a warning tone, as if he was reminding Long Qianchao and the others of something. Long Qianchao's eyes were gloomy, while Su Sanyan and the Saint Realm cultivator from the famed family didn't look too good either. However, they didn't say anything and just stared ahead. Jialo Batian, Xian Gu, Moon Saint, Fengqi Saint, and the other saints also stared ahead. Some of the saints' eyes also surged with fighting spirit, wanting to test themselves. However, they also had some scruples and didn't make a move. As cultivators of the Saint Realm, the benefits of the stone platform were attractive to them. However, they knew that if they couldn't defeat the three strongest cultivators of the same realm, they would be severely injured. Everyone would be eyeing them covetously and killing intent would be everywhere. At that time, they would be in danger. They also had other things to do here, and that was their ultimate goal. Be careful of the devil religion and Qin Yunlong. Jialo Batian transmitted his voice to Moon Saint, Xian Gu, and the others. They had formed an alliance. At this moment, Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, and the others had all obtained benefits. They were afraid that the devil religion and Qin Yunlong would attack at all costs, so they had to be careful. Mo Lingzi spat out blood as purple electric arcs exploded on his body. He fought his way to the three energy phantoms at the same time, but in the end he was no match for them. His body was pierced by the combined sword light of the three energy phantoms, and he vomited blood and retreated. Violet Lotus Fairy made a move and took over Mo Lingzi's place. Her graceful figure was moving, and purple light poured out like a lotus flower blooming in the void. It was breathtaking. Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, and the other four had already obtained benefits and passed the test of the three energy phantoms. The remaining 8 heavens favorites were still fighting. Du Xiaojing, Mo Sha, and Jialo Julai caught up from behind. With thunderous momentum, they destroyed 1 and 2 energy phantoms in front of them as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Finally, they faced the encirclement of 3 energy phantoms. Jialo Jumi used his true form. A huge dark golden rock flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Dark golden talisman runes spread out around his body, creating an abyss-like vacuum in the void around him. Throbbing black light gushed out, completely transform into a demonic rock. Jialo Batian, Jialo Mola, Jialo Yi, and the other golden-winged Great Pengbird clan's experts and elders all paled in an instant. Fight! Jialo Juelien's roar pierced through the clouds and cracked the stones. On the wings of the huge demonic rock, 36 particularly bright dark golden rays of light shuttled back and forth like lightning. The wings flapped with a frightening domineering pressure, and a large expanse of black light rushed out, turning into waves of black lightning. In an instant, the sky was filled with black lightning arcs. The entire sky was filled with waves of black lightning, and the scene was extremely terrifying. Jialo Jumi clashed with the three energy phantoms. The demonic rock tore through the sky, causing all the saints present to pale. Rumble! In the sky not far away, Jialo Jueyu's body was covered in wounds. His feathers were broken, but the sound of the heavens did not stop. Supreme power filled the air, and endless golden runes erupted. In the next moment, a bright light surged on the abdomen of Jialo Jueyu's huge golden rock body. The golden light was like an arc of electricity, and then it covered his entire body. Ancient runes spread out on his body. A vast pressure spread out in all directions from its enormous body, sweeping through half of the sky. Boom! Boom! At this moment, the entire square began to rumble, and the abyss also began to tremble violently. Golden light shone for 10,000 feet, causing the world to resonate. It was as if there were rumbling sounds of wind and thunder coming from the depths of the sky, creating a strange rumbling sound. This rumbling sound seemed to knock on people's hearts, causing them to fluctuate violently. It was as if someone was hammering their hearts and souls, making them feel like their souls would shatter and their hearts would tremble. That terrifying pressure made the souls of all the beasts present tremble, and they wanted to crawl on the ground. Such pressure made the faces of all the saints present change greatly. The pressure was so powerful that it caused the heavens and earth to rumble. He's already used his true bones. Jialo Badian, Jialo Maluo, and the other golden-winged great rocks looked serious and expectant. The other golden-winged great rocks felt their blood boil. Suppress! Jialo Jueyu shouted, and his voice was like thunder. Ancient runes and bright golden light intertwined, and together, they covered the sky and earth and enveloped the three energy phantoms. At this moment, Jialo Jueyu was like an unparalleled true rock that had awakened. He erupted with a terrifying aura that seemed to come from ancient times, and it caused everyone's hearts to tremble and their souls to scatter. The three energy phantoms exploded with sword light, and the sword light surged, destroying everything. The light on Jialo Jueyu's body dimmed, and his indestructible feathers shattered. Rock blood flowed out, and he was severely injured. But Jialo Jueyu had succeeded. He shattered the three energy phantoms, and his domineering aura shocked everyone present. Near the sky, Jialo Jueyu activated his demonic bone. In the depths of the sky, it was as if ghosts were crying and gods were howling. Endless darkness quietly surged out, permeating the heavens and earth, causing everyone's hair to stand on end and their souls to tremble. Almost at the same time as Jialo Jueyu succeeded. He used his demonic bone and 9 nether demonic lightning to destroy the three energy phantoms. Jialo Jueyu's body was heavily injured, but his condition was much better than Jialo Jueyu's. Jialo Jueyu and Jialo Jueyu had both succeeded. Jialo Batian, Jialo Maluo, Jialo Yi, and the other golden-winged great rocks had complicated expressions. Not too far away, Mo Sha and Du Xiaojing had successfully destroyed their three energy phantoms amidst the crowd's shock, but not too much of a surprise. With Moksha and Du Xiaojing's strength, no one doubted that they would lose. It was as if their success was a matter of course in the hearts of the crowd. Joy was secretly present in Qin Yanlong's eyes. However, when he saw Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao, Mo Tianxiao, Du Tingxian and the others who were enveloped by the light on the stone platforms, his expression turned dark and cold. Screech, Huang Ling screamed. Inside her huge body, there was a 5-colored flame that was moving towards 7 colors seeping out from inside out. This rainbow-colored divine flame rose and covered the sky. The phoenix's body spread its wings in the sky, and its oppressive aura filled the heavens and earth. Under the supreme beast race's phoenix's oppressive aura, the void trembled and space rippled. The surrounding void was filled with fiery divine flame runes. At this moment, with Huang Ling as the center, strange fluctuations appeared in the void. A certain kind of energy even directly affected the space. The rainbow-colored divine flame burned the void, destroyed the monstrous sword rays, and destroyed the three energy phantoms. Not far away, the runes on Dongli Qingqing's body flickered, and a resplendent green radiance was released. It was as if the aura of a fiend god was spreading in all directions. The radiance was like the radiance of the sun, and a terrifying aura was like the awakening of an ancient fiend god, causing the void to change greatly. As the hand seals were formed, Dongli Qingqing's hair fluttered behind her head. Her temperament was indescribably soul-stirring. A mysterious energy seemed to have awakened in her body, and it turned into a terrifying green energy vortex in the void. It seemed as if it could devour everything. It swallowed the monstrous sword rays and annihilated the three phantoms. Huang Ling, and Dongli Qingqing won. Both of them were covered in wounds, and their hair was disheveled. Their complexions were deathly pale, but it added a kind of messy paleness to their charms. It was also very moving. Huang Ling and Dongli Qingqing's injuries were too severe, but they were wrapped in the light rain and landed on the stone platform. That strange energy rapidly recovered. Xiang Wushuang was also facing off against the three phantoms. Amidst the monstrous sword rays, an ancient pressure rose around the enormous primordial thunder mammoth. Arcs of lightning condensed to form a huge lightning armor that covered his entire body. The symbol of the 9 rings of nirvanic power burned and fused with his body. His aura shook the heavens. The myriad mammoth physique was filled with the fury of lightning. Light and lightning intertwined, and the surrounding phenomena were enough to suppress everything. Amidst the monstrous sword rays, Xiang Wushuang's indestructible primordial thunder mammoth physique was injured. Cracks appeared on his lightning armor, and blood splattered high into the air. But in the end, Xiang Wushuang won. Although he had lost to Du Xiaofu not long ago, no one doubted his strength. At this moment, he had won in a shocking manner, shocking everyone present. The Violet Lotus Fairy was also facing off against the three phantoms. Her body transformed into a sparkling and translucent violet lotus. The petals were like beautiful violet jade, blooming in the void. As it spun, 9 divine rings appeared. She was another nirvanic. The violet lotus exploded, turning into countless sword rays that pierced through the void. They formed a sword net that trapped the three phantoms, then destroyed them. After defeating the three phantoms, Xiang Wushuang and the Violet Lotus Fairy were dragged to the stone platforms in front of the 13 arched bridges. They were enveloped by the light rain, nourished by the light rain. Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Mo Tianxiao, Moksha, Jialo Jueqi, Du Xiaojing, Huang Ling, Dongli Qingqing, Jialo Jueyu, Xiang Wushuang, and the Violet Lotus Fairy occupied the 13 stone platforms. The 13 young paragons were enshrouded in dazzling light. Those are the 13 strongest paragons in the world. Many people exclaimed. At this moment, the 13 young paragons were considered to be the most invincible among their peers. As long as there were no accidents, any one of them would have limitless achievements in the future. Of the 13 seats, the desolate country has 5. Dongli Qingqing and Jialo Jueqi are also part of the desolate country. The elders and experts of various forces were moved. Of the 13 strongest young paragons, the desolate country had 5. As for Dongli Qingqing and Jialo Jueqi, their relationship with Du Xiaofu was like family. With such a lineup, people couldn't help but imagine how terrifying the desolate country would become in the near future. Around the square, there were many paragons who were unwilling, such as the Taigu gold-devouring rat and the 8-winged green crystal python. Many paragons felt regretful. They also wanted to try. Even if they couldn't succeed, it was still a chance to test themselves. For such a test that attracted the attention of the world, as young people, even if they had been through hardships, it was inevitable that they would be hot-blooded. Zi Xian, Feng Chu, Dai Xingyu, Ouyang Shuang, Su Muxin, Yi Piaoling, Qingguyu, Buddhism's Henglun, and others didn't have time to go on stage. As Moksha, Jialo Jueqi, Du Xiaojing, Xiang Wushuang, and others went on stage, they didn't have a chance. They couldn't help but feel regretful. Among the people of the desolate country, there was also a charming young woman. Her eyes were clear, and her face was beautiful. A shrunken white eagle stood on her shoulder. She was Dongli Ruoyun, and not many people in the outside world knew about her. If her talent were to be completely known, it would be enough to cause great waves in the world and shock the world. In the Desolate Countries lineup, no one doubted Dongli Ruoyun's strength. Dongli Ruoyun was still far from being the strongest under the Saint Realm. However, if they were at the same level of cultivation, there were probably not many who could be a match for Dongli Ruoyun. Her identity as a great supreme Nirvana realm cultivator was enough to prove her extraordinary strength. However, when the crowd saw that the group of peak supreme martial artists like Lian Qingrong, Qi Yeshi, Zhou Xiaoluo, and Dongfang Qingmu were all defeated, they knew that they didn't have much chance of success. However, such a test was a glorious defeat. I want to go, why are there no seats? In the Desolate Countries lineup, Du Xiaohuang clenched her small fists, looking very excited. She also wanted to go on stage, looking full of confidence, but it was no longer her turn. I think I can do it too, but unfortunately, I can't compete with them. Among the young people of the Desolate Country, there was a young man who looked up at the 13 figures sitting cross-legged in the distance, his eyes flashing with purple lightning. Although this young man was not very old, standing in the crowd of people with outstanding temperaments, he had the feeling of a crane in a flock of chickens. This young man was Du Xiaoba, the kid who used to snort and eat the most barbecued meat every time. Now, he had grown up. Du Xiaoba, this name was very domineering, but he had delicate features. At this moment, there were several young men beside Du Xiaoba, all of them clenching their fists, their faces full of regret. I think we can also fight with them. Unfortunately, we can't compete with those guys. The ones who spoke were the two brothers, Du Xiaoba and Du Daoba. They had also grown up and were the leaders of the younger generation of the Du family. These young men of the Du family had been tempered by Du Xiaofu since they were breastfeeding. Especially Du Xiaoba and Du Daoba, their talents were comparable to the pure-blooded offspring of the golden-winged Great Rock clan. In addition, each of them had thunder martial veins. Not to mention their peers, they had never met a match in the same realm. If we were at the same level, I would definitely be able to defeat Xiang Wushuang. Du Xiaoba said, his eyes flashing with golden light, as if a golden-winged great rock was about to fly out of his eyes. His aura was incomparably domineering. Du Xiaoba was confident. His uncle was the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and his master was Jialo Jueyu of the golden-winged Great Rock clan. He had thunder martial veins. Since he was breastfeeding, he had been tempered by Du Xiaofu and Jialo Jueyu. When he was still a child, his body had been tempered by the purple gold profound thunder in the purple thunder profound cauldron. Such talent was absolutely terrifying. Chapter 21:16. Jialo Guanyu heard Du Xiaoba's words and patted Jialo Beishan's shoulder. Little guy, train hard. Elder Jialo Guanyu didn't doubt Du Xiaoba. He had seen it with his own eyes. When Du Xiaoba was still a child, he was able to ravage the young of the golden-winged Great Pengbird clan. Now, when the young of the golden-winged Great Pengbird clan saw Du Xiaoba, they still had lingering fears. The vast square fell into a brief moment of silence. Everyone's gaze was fixed on the 13 dazzling stone platforms. Some people were eager to give it a try. They wanted to break through the arch bridge, but their expressions were hesitant. They didn't dare to act rashly. The energy waves there are abnormal. The ancient bridge is sealed. Once it is touched, the consequences will be unimaginable. He sensed that even though there were no longer any strange energy phantoms in front of him, he was afraid that they still wouldn't be able to break through. The 13 of them are reaping the benefits. If anyone disturbs them, the consequences will be severe. Someone secretly warned the people around him. At this moment, the 13 young supreme beings were reaping great benefits. Once someone went up to the bridge and affected them, the experts behind the 13 supreme beings would definitely not be merciful. Many creatures were losing their patience. They had reached the last step and were about to enter the core of the eternal tomb, but they were delayed again. But in the end, no one dared to act rashly. The 13 strongest supreme martial artists were reaping the benefits. They all had saint martial artists behind them. No one dared to disturb them. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. He was like an old monk in meditation. The mysterious energy of the light rain was like the strange land in the divine dominion. It made Du Xiaofu's vast spirit watchtower and the vast Niwen palace in his mind expand. The energy they contained also became more and more powerful. Du Xiaofu's spirit watchtower and Niwen palace had been refined to the extreme in the strange land in the divine dominion. Relying on the advantages of the spirit watchtower and Niwen palace, Du Xiaofu could defeat opponents of the same level. However, no matter how powerful one was, there would always be a limit. It was impossible to be unlimited. Therefore, when the light rain entered his body, it expanded Du Xiaofu's body and mind's Niwen palace. However, compared to the size of Du Xiaofu's Shinkei and Niwen palace, it wasn't that exaggerated. The size of Du Xiaofu's spirit watchtower and Niwen palace was already exaggerated enough. It was impossible for them to expand infinitely. Although this rain of light allowed Du Xiaofu to improve once again, Du Xiaofu did not know how he could reach the end. The profound energy in the divine watchtower had already reached a level where it was about to explode, and the primordial spirit in his mind was also full and flawless. However, Du Xiaofu was still unable to step into the Saint Martial realm. In the end, he was just a little bit away from comprehending the true essence of the Saint realm. The fluctuating light rain energy was different from the light rain energy in the strange place in the divine domain. Within the light rain energy, Du Xiaofu felt as though he was in a reincarnation cycle. This feeling was profound and indescribably wonderful. In this state, Du Xiaofu felt as though his cultivation path was constantly replaying in his mind, allowing him to see everything about himself from the source. Du Xiaofu was immersed in this state. Finally, he followed the path he found and continued to advance. The Saint realm is transcendence. The Saint realm is flawless. Du Xiaofu was immersed in a profound state. He seemed to have comprehended something, and his resolute face did not show any emotion. However, unknowingly, in this ancient void, a mysterious energy of the heavens and earth seeped out from the void and surged into Du Xiaofu's body through the light barrier. Du Xiaofu, who was like an old monk in meditation, emitted a vast and hazy aura. It was as though there was a layer of divine light on his body. Looking from afar, it was transcendent and holy. It gave people a feeling that it was flawless and flawless. It was becoming more and more complete. Is that little bastard going to break through to the Saint realm? Su Sanyan, Qin Yanlong, Long Qianchao, and the others felt the aura on Du Xiaofu's body at this moment. They had been secretly watching, and their faces changed. Many of the Saint realm cultivators present were also surprised. Even Jialo Batian, Moon Saint, and the others were moved. They looked at each other. They were all saints, and they could feel that the aura on Du Xiaofu's body was not simple. A cultivator who had not yet set foot in the Saint realm was able to do this. This was clearly a change that only saints could do. Whoosh! The divine aura on Du Xiaofu's body grew stronger and stronger. In the end, it made the ancient square begin to roar. The vast abyss behind him boiled, and strange phenomena appeared in the sky. The mysterious energy of the heavens and earth became denser and denser. It traveled through Du Xiaofu's body, causing the sound of wind and thunder to ring out from Du Xiaofu's body. An invisible pressure spread out in all directions, causing the primordial spirits of the living beings present to tremble for no reason. The pressure from the heavens and earth made the living beings tremble. They were in awe and wanted to crawl. Impossible! No one in this world can break through to the Saint realm. This is impossible. Qin Yanlong was shocked. The divine aura on the boy's body grew stronger and stronger, and strange phenomena appeared in the sky. It was a sign that he was about to break through to the Saint realm. Could it be that this boy can really make a miraculous breakthrough in this world? Golden light surged in Jialo Baishan's eyes. His eyes were filled with shock and expectation. Grandpa, why can't he break through to the Saint realm? Jialo Kaling asked doubtfully. Judging from her grandfather's words, it seemed that no one could break through to the Saint realm. This world is no longer the same as before. Rumor has it that the supreme experts sealed this world and suppressed the evil with the power of the heavens and earth. Since then, no one has been able to break through to the Saint Realm. Even the Saint Realm cultivators can't make any progress. Their cultivation will even regress, Giallo Batian said to Giallo Kaling. No one has been able to break through to the Saint Realm. Giallo Kaling, Giallo Juekong, Chi Yeshi, Zhou Xiaoluo, Du Yunlong, and the others who were not far away were stunned when they heard this. Although Chi Yeshi, Zhou Xiaoluo, and the others were the leaders of the younger generation of the major families, they didn't know about this secret. It's a long story. I'll tell you later. Maybe you can find the answer in the eternal tomb, Taoist Qing Feng said to the disciples of the Taoist sect. Boom. The void rumbled and the abyss boiled. The divine aura on Du Xiaofu's body grew stronger and stronger. It was approaching a new level, and it was becoming more and more flawless. It was as if he was about to cross the peak. The great demon emperor, the 7 demon emperors, and the others from the devil sect had a drastic change in expression when they heard this commotion. All of them stared intently at Du Xiaofu. Walala! The aura on Du Xiaofu's body soared. Soon, it reached its peak amidst the commotion around him. Chapter 21:17. Just as Du Xiaofu's divine aura was about to reach its peak, the strange phenomenon disappeared. Hiss! At the same time, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes without any emotion. How could this be? He muttered to himself. Failed. Giallo Batian, Moon Saint, and Xian Gu's expressions hardened. Failed. You want to enter the Saint Realm? Impossible. Qin Yanlong laughed. He laughed very happily. No one in this world would be able to break through to the Saint Realm. Want to break through to the Saint Realm? How ignorant! Long Qianchao's eyes were filled with joy. The thing he was most worried about would not happen. No one in this world could enter the Saint Realm after them. On the lotus stone platform, Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with astonishment. He only remembered that when he was in that state of enlightenment, everything was progressing towards the Great Circle Realm. Just as he was about to cross an invisible bottleneck, a terrifying force blocked everything. Du Xiaofu was surprised. He checked his body and found nothing strange. The spirit gate in his body expanded again. His chi surged like a boiling ocean. In his mind's mud-pill palace, the primordial spirit's energy rippled. Everything was full to the extreme. It was even better than before. A mouthful of turbid chi was exhaled from his throat. Faint purple-gold lightning flashed in Du Xiaofu's eyes. His body was calm, but ripples of divine light spread out. His body glowed, emitting a faint rumbling sound. He had a divine aura. His body was sparkling and translucent, emitting a divine light and aura. He seems to have improved a lot, whispered an expert in the distance. He could feel Du Xiaofu's aura from afar. It seemed that there was no substantial improvement, but at this moment, the invisible aura and aura around him had clearly improved. No matter how good his talent is, it's useless. I'm afraid he can't wait until the day he enters the Saint Realm. Qin Yunlong sneered. On the other hand, the old madam's aged face looked a little embarrassed as she pulled her hand out of Giallo Batian's palm. Rumble. At the same time, the abyss was destroyed. The 13 lotus flower platforms lit up, and the energy shields of the remaining 12 lotus flower platforms collapsed. The light rain dissipated into the void. Little Xingxing, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, Moksha, Jialo Juelyao, and Dongli Qingqing all opened their eyes. Their auras soared into the sky, shaking the void. It hadn't been long since they received the benefits of the light rain, but at this moment, all the living beings in the square could feel that these 12 people had all received great benefits. Chi-chi. Light shone brightly. At the same time, under everyone's astonished gazes, 13 dazzling sword lights shot out from the 13 lotus flower platforms and finally gathered in the void. The 13 sword lights fused together in the void, becoming brighter and brighter. Their auras grew stronger and stronger. When the 13 sword lights finally fused, a monstrous light bloomed like the sun. As the light bloomed, an ancient sword floated in the air. the sword light overflowed, and mysterious runes lingered around it. Its sharp aura soared into the sky. Buzz buzz. The sword hovered in the sky, and the wind and thunder clashed. The entire square trembled. The terrifying pressure swept out, changing the color of everyone's faces. The aura emanating from the sword had already caused the primordial spirits of all the Saint Realm cultivators present to tremble. What a terrifying pressure! It seems like it can shatter the primordial spirit. Those who weren't strong enough felt a stabbing pain in their primordial spirits. The aura of the sword was like a sharp sword that wanted to shatter their primordial spirits. Treasure. It's definitely a great treasure. It's at least at the level of a middle-grade saint artifact, said an expert. The pressure of the sword was too strong. It was definitely not something an ordinary saint artifact could compare to. Buzz. Within Du Xiaofu's divine watchtower, the purple-gold heavenly watchtower rumbled as if it wanted to leave the body. However, there was an instinctive fear, as if it had some misgivings. It's definitely not a simple item. Du Xiaofu's gaze was fixed on the sword. This sword was almost the same as the sword used by the energy phantoms. It was completely white, like a beautiful jade, but its aura was different. It made people look straight at it, as if there was a monstrous sword light rushing into the mind's Niwen palace, causing the primordial spirit to tremble in pain. Other than showing fear towards the purple thunder profound cauldron, the purple-gold heavenly watchtower had never shown fear in front of any ice blade. The aura of the ancient sword made Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit tremble for no reason. It was enough to show that it was definitely not a simple item. Qi. Without any hesitation, Du Xiaofu directly made his move. He slapped the stone platform with his palm, and his cross-legged body leaped out. Golden light surged like a bolt of golden lightning, directly pouncing towards the sword. Boom! With the appearance of the treasured sword, the originally quiet but tense atmosphere in the plaza, at this moment, it was as if a bomb had been thrown into a suppressed volcano. Immediately, it began to boil. Countless auras gushed out, and everyone's eyes turned blood-red at this moment. With that terrifying power and ancient aura, it was not difficult for everyone to know that the ancient sword was definitely a precious treasure. If they obtained it, it was very likely that they would be able to reach the heavens in a single step. Keep. As Du Xiaofu made his move, suddenly, someone was even faster. A claw print traversed the void and directly pierced through the air. This person was too strong. The claw print directly distorted a large part of the void and controlled everything. The vast power caused the expressions of the Saint Realm experts around the square to suddenly change. The claw print broke through the air as if it was descending from the sky. In an instant, it was about to grab the ancient sword. Buzz buzz. Suddenly, the sword's buzzing sound was like wind and thunder. In an instant, as if it had a spirit, a majestic aura swept out in an instant. Suddenly, it turned into a series of sword shadows above the void. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A series of sword shadows swept out in a mysterious manner. As the majestic and sharp aura spread out, the sword shadows cut through the space. The tip of the sword vaguely revealed a pitch-black light. Under the oppressive and terrifying aura, the entire square was trembling. The sword light rotated in a mysterious manner, covering the sky and the sun. The monstrous sword aura spread out, causing the surrounding space to distort and shatter. Swish! In just a short moment, the silver sword turned into a series of sword lights and soared into the sky. Along with a dazzling silver light, it flew out and pierced through the space. In an instant, it pierced through the claw print. Swish! The space above the void shattered. From the spot where the claw print was shattered, a skinny yellow-clothed old man staggered back. He looked a little embarrassed. His wretched face was similar to Zhen Qingquan's, but his eyes were filled with shock. Oh, it's that old fox. He's still alive. He hid until now and only showed himself. Xian Gu looked at the yellow-clothed old man in surprise. That old fox. When he stepped into the Saint Realm at the last moment, he intended to avoid the calamity. Now that he's here, he must have a purpose. Moon Saint said. His eyes rippled with starlight. He seemed to be familiar with the yellow-clothed old man. Everything took a long time to describe. Du Xiaofu's figure swept out like lightning, but the silver sword seemed to have a mind of its own. It instantly broke through the air and flew out. Swish, 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 swish. At the same time, on the remaining 12 lotus stone platforms, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Moksha, Du Xiaojing, and the others were like 12 bolts of lightning. In an instant, they grabbed the silver sword. It was self-evident that it was a precious treasure. No one wanted to miss it. Swish. The silver sword broke through the air and drew a strange arc in the void. It just happened to avoid Du Xiaojing, Moksha, Jialo Jumi, and the others. Then, it broke through the air and swept across the abyss toward the colossus on the other side of the abyss. Crack, crack. The 13 ancient lotus stone platforms cracked at the same time. The barrier in front of the square disappeared. Rumble. The 13 bronze-arched bridges glowed. Runes flickered. Under the illumination of the light curtain, they appeared to be glittering with golden light. An ancient aura filled the air, causing the square to tremble. Around the square, over a dozen incomparably frightening auras surged out in a split second. Numerous figures transformed into lightning-like figures as they passed through the 13 arched bridges and chased after the silver treasure sword. These figures were all Saint Realm cultivators, including Jialo Batian, Feng Qi Saint, Taoist Qing Feng, and the others. The silver sword had already moved their hearts. It was an absolute treasure. That place has been opened. We can go over. That's a precious treasure. Go after it. The square was in an uproar. In an instant, figure after figure rushed toward the 13 arched bridges like a swarm of locusts. They wanted to cross the abyss and enter the core of the eternal tomb. They also wanted to chase after the precious treasure. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered with golden light in midair. The silver sword was a precious treasure, but there was a large group of Sage Realm experts chasing after it. Even if he chased after it, the chances of him catching up with it were slim. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled for no reason. His Yuan spirit trembled for no reason. At the same time, such a voice rang out from Du Xiaofu's Naiwan palace in his mind, "Kid, be careful. Someone is ambushing you. A Saint Realm cultivator is ambushing me." Du Xiaofu's expression changed. He was no longer the powerless ant in front of a Saint Realm cultivator. Even if he was no match for them, at least he could fight back now. Chapter 21:18. Du Xiaofu's purple lightning profound cauldron rumbled. Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to use the purple lightning profound cauldron in the face of a sneak attack from a Saint Realm expert. Chila! Chila! At this critical moment, the space in front of Du Xiaofu shook violently and a monstrous aura descended. A vast expanse of starlight shrouded Du Xiaofu, and the world suddenly darkened. Woo-woo! A beam of demonic qi collided with the starlight barrier. Instantly, demonic qi swept out, dark and deep. Terrifying energy spread out in all directions, and a humming sound was heard in the void. The starlight shone, and it was as if the world had fallen into the night. A bright moon hung in the sky, and the moonlight scattered, obliterating the demonic qi. A graceful figure appeared in the starlight, mysterious and beautiful, hazy and vast. It was the Moon Saint. She did not chase after the silver longsword. She stayed behind, afraid that someone would sneak up on them. Hee. The 7 demon empress appeared in the void, surrounded by demonic qi. However, her body was curvaceous, and her clothes did not cover her body. It made people worry that she would expose herself at any time. Looking at the Moon Saint and Du Xiaofu, the 7 demon empress smiled beautifully, but her eyes were sinister. In that strange place of suppression, she did not gain any advantage and retreated in a sorry state. She did not have a chance to attack, and her face was ugly. Whoosh! The 7 demon empress did not stop. Seeing that the Moon Saint was there, she knew that she did not have a chance. She flew away without any hesitation. Du Xiaofu did not summon the purple lightning profound cauldron. Looking at the 7 demon empress who left, his face was gloomy, and a chill flashed in his eyes. Shameless devil religion. Little Xingxing's eyes were filled with hatred. He immediately went to Du Xiaofu's side, and his aura surged. He had benefited a lot from the light rain, and it made him stronger. Be careful. Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, Dongli Qingqing, and Jialo Jueyu immediately went to Du Xiaofu's side. Du, are you all right, Du? Granny, Jialo, I'm fine. Du Xiaofu shook his head. When he saw Jiangchen, he found it strange. Given Jiangchen's strength, he should have been able to obtain one of the 13 stone platforms, but he hadn't. That treasure is... Jiangchen stared at the other side of the chasm. A group of Sage Realm cultivators had already given chase. As soon as he spoke, he transformed into a streak of purple light and shot through the air. Whoosh whoosh. At the same time, the entire square was in an uproar. Creatures from all sides were like a swarm of locusts as they swarmed towards the 13 ancient arched bridges. In the air above the square, figures of people and beasts covered the sky and covered the earth. Bang bang. On the bridge, there were people fighting to cross the bridge, and muffled sounds of energy could be heard. Some people and demonic beasts vomited blood and fell. Some fell onto the bridge, causing the bridge to rumble. Some fell directly into the abyss and were instantly swallowed up by the light screen. Miserable screams rang out, and not even their corpses remained. Let's go. Be careful. Old Lady Garuda said. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu's expression turned solemn as he watched people falling from the bridge and all parties fighting to cross it. Let's go. Anyone who blocks us will die. As Du Xiaofu said that, Little Star became restless. A terrifying aura swept out, rushing towards the nearest arch bridge. Cross. Garuda Jueyu said. Golden light burst out, and he waved his sleeves like a rock spreading its wings, sweeping across the void. Mo Tianxiao, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, and the others crossed the bridge, releasing their terrifying auras. These supreme beings moved together, guarding an ancient arch bridge, protecting the disciples of the desolate country, the Phoenix clan, and the Yinyang school as they crossed the abyss, preventing other creatures from approaching. With these supreme beings protecting them, the disciples of the desolate country, the Phoenix clan, the school of agriculture, and the Mahis school were secretly excited as they successfully crossed the bridge. As for the Silver Sword, there was already a group of Saint Realm experts chasing after it. Du Xiaofu no longer held any hope. Even if those Saint Realm experts caught up, a shocking battle would inevitably erupt. Du Xiaofu knew that although he was confident in his strength, it was definitely not enough to participate in a battle between Saint Realm experts. Looking at the colossal object in front of the abyss, which was getting closer and closer, Du Xiaofu's feet flashed with golden light. His figure turned into a golden rainbow that swept across the sky, rushing towards the arch bridge. Let's go! As Du Xiaofu's figure swept out, the 18 heavenly guards, Zhen Qingchun, the blood vine demon, and the other desolate country experts who had been following closely behind immediately moved as well. They turned into streaks of rainbow that followed after Du Xiaofu. The arch bridge seemed very narrow, but it was actually very wide. However, it did not seem so wide for the body of a beast with a wingspan of 10,000 feet. As he stood on the arch bridge, the outline of the colossal object in front of him had already appeared in Du Xiaofu's line of sight. An inexplicable pressure was like that of a ferocious beast in the universe, causing Du Xiaofu's heart to turn cold and his soul to tremble. The closer he got, the more intense the pressure became. Du Xiaofu moved very quickly, appearing in front of the abyss. He had already crossed the strange abyss that was tens of thousands of feet long. The colossal object in front of him towered like a mountain in the universe in front of Du Xiaofu. It was like a fallen star that towered over the heavenly devil battlefield. It was so vast that he could not see the end of it. It was like a million mountains, like a heavenly tomb. The heavenly tomb was just too big. It made people feel abnormally small when they stood before it. Even the huge ferocious bird that was entrenched in the void was like an ant in front of the huge heavenly tomb. The colossal creature's entire body was ancient and mottled with bronze. An aura that caused one's heart to palpitate spread out from every corner of its body. Just looking at it would cause one's heart to palpitate and one's spirit to tremble. The 13 archbridges connected the 13 huge entrances to the heavenly tomb. They were deep, dark, and silent. They were like the 13 mouths of a ferocious beast in the universe. Once they were awakened, they could devour the world, devour everything. The living beings that had crossed the 13 archbridges in the surroundings were just as shocked as Du Xiaofu. They slowly froze on the spot. As they looked up at the colossal object, they could not help but feel insignificant for no reason. Some of the weaker living beings directly prostrated themselves. Many experts were in a daze. It took them a long time to come back to their senses. Their eyes were filled with shock. What a terrifying aura. It really seems like an eternal tomb that can bury everything. Qi Yeshi's eyes were filled with shock as she murmured. Du Xiaofu's face was solemn. Many mysteries would be answered here, but it would not be a good place. Sweeping his gaze, Du Xiaofu saw a group of Saint Realm experts who had just chased after the silver sword. In addition to the familiar demon emperor from the devil religion, Xian Gu, Taoist Qing Feng, Saint Feng Qi, Qin Yanlong, and others, there were several unfamiliar ones. However, the faint aura fluctuations on their bodies proved that they were all genuine Saint Realm experts. Chapter 21:19. On the 13 arched bridges, a large number of living beings were surging over. However, they stood behind the 9 forces and did not act rashly. Even those sage realm experts didn't immediately barge in. They weren't stupid. Naturally, no one would be stupid enough to be the first to lead the charge. That would be equivalent to cannon fodder. Although the treasure was tempting, it was hard for them to resist. But in the end, life was more important. Du Xiaofu led the people around him to Jialo Batian, Xian Gu, and the other experts as they watched the behemoth in shock. The disciples of the School of Agriculture, School of Taoism, School of Confucianism, School of Moism, and School of Yin-Yang stood behind their respective saint stage experts. Let's act according to the plan. The moon saint looked at the entrance of the tomb. His eyes narrowed, and starlight flickered. Upon hearing Moon Sage's words, forefathers Star Soul, Qi Xingchen, and the other experts from the Yin-Yang school stepped forward. There were not many of them, only 5. Including the Moon Saint, there were only 6 of them. Taoist Qing Feng, Jialo Batian, and the other experts also waved their hands slightly, as if they were hinting at something. At the same time, Tian Bei Qin, Elder Meng, Feng Fenshen, and the others from the Taoist school, the Golden-Winged Great Pring clan, the Phoenix clan, and other forces walked out. Among the Golden-Winged Great Rocks, the Great Elder, Second Elder, Third Elder, Jialo Jueyu, and Old Granny Jialo Maluo walked out. We agreed that you can't go in. Everything inside is unknown. Jialo Batian turned around and looked at the old lady, his eyes rippling softly. I don't have many years left to live. I'll accompany you, the old lady said with a smile. No, the clan still needs you. If anything happens to us, at least you'll still be with the clan. Jialo Batian shook his head firmly. The old lady looked at Jialo Batian. After a while, she nodded and said softly, I will wait for you outside. You must come back and take good care of Jueyu and Xiaofu. All right, even if it's for you, I will definitely return safely. Jialo Batian reached out and caressed the old lady's aged face as if he was holding the most precious treasure, his eyes full of tenderness. I have goosebumps. So disgusting. Xian Gu rolled his eyes and couldn't help but shift his position. Old turtle. Jialo Batian glared at Xian Gu. Then he turned to Du Xiaofu and said, Xiaofu, those above the main region realm can go in. The others from the barren country can stay here. Don't go in. Du Xiaofu was slightly taken aback. It was no wonder that Tian Bei Qin, Elder Meng, Elder Qi Xingchen, Elder Feng Fenshen, and the other experts had walked out. It seemed that the various great forces did not intend to let all their disciples enter. Xiaofu, that place is too dangerous. Those who are not strong enough won't benefit from going in. They will only increase the number of casualties. You have to be careful. Qi Yi told Du Xiaofu the details. The core area was definitely not simple, and the experts of the various factions were well aware of it. Only those who were at least at the main region realm could enter. It was useless to have too many people as it would only increase the number of casualties. Du Xiaofu nodded and informed the disciples of the Desolate Nation and World Society that only cultivators above the main region level could enter. The others should stay outside. I want to go in. I have a feeling that someone from the Great Snow Mountain might be buried here, Lian Qingrong said. My master said that it would be good to train in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The Tomb of Eternity is not something that I can enter. Brother Xiaofu, you have to be careful, Dai Xingyu said and did not want to enter. She frowned. Her master had warned her a long time ago. My master also mentioned that my strength is not enough to enter the Tomb of Eternity, Ouyang Shuang said. Hearing that, Du Xiaofu's eyes secretly turned serious. Ouyang Shuang's master was that old madman who was as mysterious as Fu Yibai. Dai Xingyu's master also seemed to have a close relationship with Fu Yibai. Cultivators at that level could even trample on Saint Plain cultivators. They knew about the Tomb of Eternity. When it came to the dangers inside, the Tomb of Eternity was definitely a great disaster. In the end, only Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Mo Tianxiao, Lian Qingrong, Dongfang Qingmu, and Nether Demon entered. Brother Qingchen Yilao, big sister, second brother, wait for me outside. Du Xiaofu said to Zhen Qingchun, Yi Wuming, Du Yunlong, and Du Xiaoman. Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoman, Zhen Qingchun, and the others had improved greatly over the years. They were already famous in the world, but it was still not enough for them to enter. The 18 Celestial Guards, Phantom, Bloodvine Doom, Du Hao, Du Shui, and Du Xiaohuang wanted to enter, but they were all rejected by Du Xiaofu. Firstly, they were not strong enough. Secondly, if there were great dangers inside, even if they died, the desolate country would not decline. You have to be careful, Su Muxin said to Du Xiaofu. She had not worn men's clothes for a long time. Her skin was white as snow under her dark purple dress. Her charming face was enchanting. She was so beautiful that it was soul-stirring. Her eyes were clear and bright. Be careful, Zixuan said to Du Xiaofu. Her voice was ethereal and ethereal. Du Xiaofu nodded and squeezed out a smile. Since he was already here, even if it was a mountain of knives and a sea of fire, he had to give it a try. Just as Du Xiaofu was deep in thought, he suddenly felt several cold gazes directed at him. His expression darkened as he raised his eyes and looked in the direction where the cold gazes were directed at him. Humph! When he saw the owners of those cold gazes, Du Xiaofu snorted. It was Qin Yunlong, Long Qianchao, and the others. Oh! At the same time, the several hundred people from the devil religion had already entered one of the 13 huge entrances amidst the surging devil chi. Earth Devil Envoy, Fire Devil Envoy, Thunder Devil Envoy, a group of devil envoys, devil beasts, and evil spirits all entered without any scruples. Qin Yunlong stared coldly at Du Xiaofu. Seeing that Du Xiaofu had failed to break through to the Saint Realm, he had already determined that this brat was fine. However, he had a deep hatred for him and did not intend to let him go. If there was an opportunity inside, he would naturally take action. At that time, he would definitely make this brat suffer a fate worse than death. Let's go, Qin Yunlong said. As his voice faded, several people leaped into the air and flew into a huge entrance. Amitba! Chants of Buddha appeared in the air. Among the people of the Buddhist school, several figures also entered. They were all old monks. Among the younger generation, only Hung Luan was there. The others were holding back outside. Among them were the 9th-level spirits. There must be great opportunities inside. Let's go! Seeing that the experts of various families had already entered, some people who did not dare to be the leaders were stimulated and could not bear it anymore. Swoosh swoosh, figures soared into the sky. There were ferocious birds flapping their wings and beasts roaring. They were like a dense swarm of locusts rushing towards the 13 huge entrances. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.